Chapter 543. Ah. Both of them were shocked. Although their previous cultivation levels were low, they were still clear about one thing. If such a treasure was made public, it would probably cause great trouble. Boss, you have to think twice. Fu Chun cupped her hands and advised earnestly, this limit-breaking pill is really too magical. Once outsiders know about it, I'm afraid all the cultivators in the world will flock to snatch it. Just like that Yu Qianqiu, because of these two treasured sabers, ended up being chased and robbed by cultivators from various countries. That's right, that's right. Qin Jiaxing nodded repeatedly and said very sincerely, Boss, this kind of thing really can't be leaked. Such a precious treasure will really bring about a fatal disaster. I'm not afraid of the itch when I'm covered with lice. Yu Qianqiu smiled self-deprecatingly and waved his hand at the two who didn't understand, saying, just do as I say, nothing will happen. The two looked at each other and showed expressions of listening attentively. After all, they had just said that they would obey his orders. If they were to be long-winded, they would be suspected of being disobedient. Moreover, the two of them were now quite convinced of this boss. Who in the world could raise the cultivation level of a foundation establishment cultivator to the tribulation passing stage in one day? They didn't know whether others had this ability or not. In any case, they had never heard of it. Such a miraculous method, coupled with his powerful skills and mysterious origin, made the two of them fear and respect him. Yu Qianqiu was very satisfied with their performance and said slowly, if someone asks you about the improvement of your cultivation level, it's okay for you to disclose the limit-breaking pill. Just say that I'm going to make a lot of it, and on the day of the treasure basin gathering, I will sell it to the cultivators in the world. Of course, some things can't be said completely. What could be said and what could not be said, he carefully explained to the two of them. After figuring it out, the two of them looked at each other. They didn't know what the boss was going to do, but it wasn't good for them to ask, so they promised to do as he said. At this moment, the room suddenly darkened, and there was a faint sound of thunder in the sky outside. Yu Qianqiu's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the two of them and quickly opened the door and walked out. Yan Lan and the other girls were looking around the courtyard. When they saw Yu Qianqiu coming out, they all bowed and greeted him, Mr. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at them and looked up into the sky. Dark clouds were rolling overhead, and there were lightning bolts intertwining in the sky. Lightning snakes flickered in and out of the dark clouds. This was especially true for the area above their heads, where the clouds were as black as ink and lightning snakes were flashing. The six girls looked at each other. They had seen this phenomenon many times in the Misty Rain Tower. Yan Lan said in surprise, it's a tribulation cloud. Could it be that someone is going through a tribulation in this ghost manner? When Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun heard this, their expressions changed. Of course, they knew who was going to undergo the tribulation. The former asked fearfully, Boss, what should we do? The two of them had never experienced such a scene before, so they were more or less afraid. They couldn't help but ask their boss for help. It's not a big deal to go through the tribulation in the early stage. Yu Qianqiu had seen many people go through the tribulation in Utopia, so he was already used to it. There was indeed nothing to be afraid of in the early stage. Even if he was going through the tribulation himself, although he was struck by lightning and fainted, he could just sleep in a daze and muddle through it. It was nothing. Let's go into the mountain. It's big enough there. Yu Qianqiu flew towards the back of the mountain. The two of them didn't dare to hesitate and quickly followed him, seeing that Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun could actually fly in the air. Coupled with what the three of them said just now, the six girls were so shocked that their jaws dropped. After a while, Yan Xia stammered, Could it be that Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing are going through the tribulation? How? How is this possible? It wasn't just the six of them. Many people in the ghost manor were also looking at the sky and wondering who was going through the tribulation. When they suddenly saw Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun flying in the air, they all rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. After asking the people around them, they realized that it was very likely to be true. How was this possible? Many people flew into the air, wanting to follow them to see what was going on, in the next few days, Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing, whose cultivations had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing, had a comfortable life. The two of them arrogantly scurried around the ghost manor, accepting the flattery of the loose cultivators. Although they were going around to complete the task given by their boss, the feeling of being flattered by everyone made the two of them feel a little complacent. They didn't know who they were anymore. Yu Qianqiu really couldn't stand it anymore. Their morals. Naturally, he had to pour some cold water on them to wake them up. He seriously warned the two of them. The two of them had only reached the early stage of tribulation passing, and their real strength was still far from the early stage of tribulation passing. If any powerful early stage nascent soul cultivator couldn't stand the sight of you, they would definitely kill you. Don't be too arrogant. Yu Qianqiu's words weren't alarmist words. How could a cultivator who had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing in a day compare to a cultivator who had cultivated for 100 years, or even hundreds of years? Not to mention the profoundness of their cultivation arts, just their actual combat strength alone was a world of difference. A slightly stronger early-stage nascent soul cultivator wouldn't have a problem killing them. The level of one's cultivation didn't necessarily determine one's strength. This wasn't just a saying, Yu Qianqiu understood this very well. Precisely because he understood this, the members in Utopia who had forcefully raised their cultivation were forced to continuously train with all their might. This was so that when they faced actual combat, they would be able to minimize the number of casualties to the greatest extent. After being reprimanded, the two of them knew that their boss wasn't lying. After their minds became clearer, they restrained themselves a lot. In these few days, the ruthless magistrate Niu Yud would also walk around the ghost manor every day. At the same time, the cultivation world's butcher, Yu Qianqiu, would often appear around the fog forest, the secret of entering and leaving the fog forest. As a result, many cultivators were attracted over. However, a butcher was a butcher, and those who were unlucky enough to encounter him rarely managed to escape alive. When a large number of people rushed over, everyone could only watch as he escaped into the fog forest. There was nothing they could do about him. Once everyone relaxed, this fellow became energetic again. Without anyone noticing, he would sneak out to commit crimes. He killed a few people here and there, causing those who suffered losses to want to pull out his tendons and skin him alive. However, this fellow was even more slippery than a loach, and it was very difficult to catch him. At the most, more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts trapped him in a valley. However, in the end, no one could figure out what was going on. Everyone searched everywhere, but they still couldn't find him. In the end, he still managed to slip away. Then, he turned around and appeared somewhere else. He charged into a group of nascent soul cultivators and slaughtered them, killing nearly 100 people in one go. When more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts rushed over to help, that fellow ran away again. The cultivators of the various countries were filled with hatred. They looked at the heavens speechlessly. They gritted their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter, and they almost burst into tears. So many experts couldn't catch an early-stage tribulation transcendence expert. Furthermore, he often appeared right under their noses. This group of people had lost all their face. Yu Qianqiu's strategy was very effective in dealing with this group of people. To sum it up, the enemy was tired, would disturb; the enemy was strong, would retreat; the enemy chased, I would run. If anyone was careless, I would be ruthless. Just when Yu Qianqiu was causing quite a stir among the various countries, a ruthless judge, Niu Yud, suddenly appeared in the Jinshan country's ghost village. This person's appearance more or less stole the limelight from the butcher Yu Qianqiu. The experts of various countries temporarily stopped dealing with Yu Qianqiu and focused their attention here. Ordinary cultivators in the cultivation world didn't know who the one-armed old man of the ghost village was, but the higher-ups of the various countries knew. This Niu Yud was actually able to shatter the one-armed old man's flying sword with one palm strike. Furthermore, he had shattered it into powder. It was truly unbelievable. When did such an expert appear in the cultivation world? What shocked them the most was that this Niu Yud was actually able to forcibly raise the cultivation of 2 foundation establishment stage loose cultivators to the early stage of tribulation passing within a day. Many people had seen it with their own eyes. This was simply too inconceivable. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. What a distant word. It was so distant that people had almost forgotten about it. Legend had it that during the chaotic battles of ancient times, a capable person with special abilities had refined a very overbearing spirit pill in order to gain the upper hand in the battle. It could forcibly raise the cultivation of the cultivators under him to the tribulation passing stage in a short period of time. This was only a legend. As for what exactly was going on, no one knew. They had only vaguely heard that this spirit pill was called the limit-breaking pill. Nyo-Yud could actually refine the limit-breaking pill. It was said that he could also refine it in large quantities and was even preparing to sell it at the cornucopia gathering in the future. This news was even more shocking than him shattering the one-armed old man's flying sword. Just think about it, which of the various countries' soul formation experts didn't have 1,000 or 800 cultivators under their command? Those with great powers even had tens of thousands of cultivators under their command. There were even some that had close to 100,000 cultivators under their command. For example, In Baikong's World Chamber of Commerce. The World Chamber of Commerce had more than 100,000 disciples. Although it was a mix of good and bad, and most of them had low cultivation. But what if they had the limit-breaking pill? 100,000 tribulation-passing experts, oh my God. Just thinking about it made people's blood boil. The headquarters of the World Chamber of Commerce, Cornucopia, God of Wealth Peak. On the God of Wealth Peak, the wind and clouds surged, causing people's clothes to flutter. At this time, the three people's emotions were the same, making it impossible for them to calm down. In Baikong, dressed in a black robe, stood tall on the peak of the mountain. No matter how strong the wind caused his robe to flutter, he didn't move an inch. His eyes were like an eagle's as he stared in the direction of the Golden Mountain country. However, under his slightly shriveled cheeks, one could clearly see his muscles twitching non-stop. It was obvious that his heart wasn't as calm as it looked. Sikong Ju and Jing Yuankong silently stood behind their master, limit-breaking pill. Sikong Ju's eyes flickered. As In Baikong's head disciple, he had followed his master for the longest time. At the same time, he was also his master's most trusted disciple. Some things were secrets between master and disciple. Sikong, is the news reliable? In Baikong asked without turning his head. Sikong Ju respectfully replied, we have planted our spies in the ghost manor. They saw it with their own eyes, so it shouldn't be wrong. In Baikong slightly nodded his head with his back facing the two. His voice was still calm as he said, Sikong, let's put the other matters aside for now. Pick enough capable people and personally go to the Golden Mountain country. Chapter 544. Yes. Sikong Ju answered decisively. He understood that if the limit-breaking pill was really that miraculous, it was too important to world commerce. In Baikong gradually turned around. He first glanced at Jing Yuankong, then at Sikong Ju, and said, the limit-breaking pill is extremely important. Logically speaking, I should personally make a trip, but I have to give face to the one-armed geezer, so it's not convenient for me to interfere. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng. Feeling that he had gone off topic, he paused and continued, it would be best if you can invite that Nyo-Yud to our world commerce. If not, see if you can buy the limit-breaking pills recipe. It doesn't matter if the price is high, as long as it's not too outrageous. In short, before we can guarantee the interests of world commerce, Nyo-Yud and the limit-breaking pills recipe cannot fall into the hands of others. It's too big of a threat to our world commerce. If necessary, we'd rather destroy it. Disciple understands. Sikong Ju bowed slightly and frowned. What if the lords of other countries interfere? In Baikong put his hands behind his back and said, you don't have to worry about this. One-armed old devil still has Lu Yanqing behind him. The lords of other countries won't run to Ghost Manor without any qualms. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng has already started meeting guests. I'm afraid everyone will have to go to Baiwan Nation first. I'll think of a way to hold them back and give you enough time. Disciple will do his best. Sikong Ju bowed. As for what to do, you have to know your limits. Try not to clash with one-armed old devil. Taking 10,000 steps back, didn't know you'd say he's going to sell the limit-breaking pill at the Treasure Basin gathering? If we can stop the others from succeeding before then, when the cornucopia meeting is held, with the financial resources of our world commerce, we will also be the biggest winner, Yin Baikong said confidently. Yes. Sikong Ju also became confident. With his master holding back the other experts, he had nothing to worry about. Yuan Kong. Your eldest senior brother and I aren't here, so I'll leave the house to you. Yin Baikong called out. Disciple will definitely guard the house well and not let master and senior brother have any worries. Jing Yuankong replied. After giving some instructions, Yin Baikong quickly left in the direction of Baiwan Nation and disappeared into the distance. The two brothers also went down the mountain. One continued with his own work, while the other gathered people and prepared to go to the Jinshan Kingdom. In fact, it was not only the World Chamber of Commerce that took action. All the other countries were like cats that smelled blood, sending their most capable disciples and subordinates to the Golden Mountain country. For a time, the Yu Qianshou incident in the Jinshan Kingdom had not been settled yet, and now Niu Yud had stirred up a storm. One wave after another. Those cultivators who could only watch the show and could not get involved couldn't help but sigh. The current cultivation world was really in troubled times. Previously, the cornucopia had been pushed back from the 8th major event to the 9th major event. Now, it seemed that it had been pushed back by the limit-breaking pill incident, and the cornucopia could only be demoted to 10th again. Baiwan Nation's sacred land, in the back room of the sacred palace, when Lanfeng slowly walked out of a complex sound transmission array filled with spirit stones. When he was on Obedient Island, he had obtained the coordinates of old ancestor Nan Ming's message formation. Just now, he had informed Obedient Island about the situation. The person he was talking to was Nongzhu, who had nothing better to do. He could imagine the scene of old ancestor Nan Ming shouting at the top of his lungs when he found out. Outside the curved arched door of the back room, when Rui greeted Wen Lanfeng, who had a slight smile on his face. He found that since the last time the old ancestor returned from the demon domain, there would be a smile on his face from time to time. The melancholy that always hung on his face had lightened a lot, as if he had let go of something that could not be resolved in his heart. What puzzled him the most was that although the old ancestor was defeated by Bai Changchun, he often maintained contact with the demon domain. Old ancestor, according to your instructions, the guests who have been waiting for a long time have been arranged to the bank of the heart-cleansing lake, Wen Rui reported as he walked slowly with Wen Lanfeng. Under the bright and hazy light, Wen Lanfeng lost some of his melancholy and appeared somewhat graceful and luxurious. As he walked along the white jade corridor, he asked, "How many people have come?" "Nearly 100 soul formation experts from various countries have come, and more are coming," Wen Rui replied. "Oh. Only nearly 100? Wen Lanfeng asked faintly, "Has the news that I want to meet the guests spread?" Wen Rui smiled and said, "The news has been released." "Old ancestor, do you plan to meet them today?" Wen Lanfeng said disapprovingly, "Wait for another day. Wait for more people. I don't have time to accompany them all day long." "Ah, this." Wen Rui smiled bitterly, "Old ancestor, this is not good. Some of the people who came early have been waiting for more than 10 days. Some people are already cursing us, saying that they have never seen us treat guests like this. Some people even said that if you don't show up, they will go back." "Humph." When Lanfeng stopped, turned around and said indifferently, "Go tell them that although my place is not as good as the demon domain's Obedient Island, it is not a place where anyone can come and go as they please. If they have the guts, they can try. When the time comes, I will personally visit them." The majesty of the world's second expert was revealed in an instant. Then he snorted as he walked, "Looks like I have to learn from Bai Changchun. Sometimes, being too polite to others is not necessarily a good thing. Obedient Island is still peaceful and free. Who would dare to disturb it?" Wen Rui's expression twitched. Although it was a good thing that the old ancestor's fighting spirit had reappeared, he would offend many people if he told them the exact words. After all, Baiwan Nation was not as aloof as the demon domain. Everyone had frequent dealings with each other. Is there any news from the Misty Forest? Wen Lanfeng asked again. Wen Rui quickly caught up and replied, everyone's attention is now on the Ghost Manor. Over at the Misty Forest, Yu Qianqiu appeared a few times, but seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he hid in the Misty Forest and didn't appear again. Ha! What is this guy trying to do? Wen Lanfeng shook his head and smiled. When the news that there was a treasure left by the demon monarch of 10,000 swords in the Misty Forest, he was also tempted. Baiwan Nation was also gathering people to prepare for the treasure. But when he heard the news that it was Yu Qianqiu who leaked it, he immediately stopped the operation. Combined with Nongzhu's evaluation of Yu Qianqiu, he instinctively felt that there was something fishy about it. So he got in touch with Nongzhu on Obedient Island. When Nongzhu heard about it, she said suspiciously, based on that kid's character, even a piece of trash is divided into several storage bags. How could he easily tell others about such a precious treasure? Wen Lanfeng, are you sure about this news? Wait, even if it's true, don't make a fuss. Maybe it's that kid's up to something again. By the way, don't worry about him for now. Let's keep in touch and see what he's up to. Was there such a thing? Wen Lanfeng was speechless. In the following days, he jumped out of the scene and observed the changes from the perspective of an outsider. Sure enough, he found that none of the forces involved in this matter got any benefits. It seemed that they all suffered some losses. He kind of believed that it was Yu Qianqiu who was playing tricks on them. There are no soul formation experts in the Mist Forest who are involved, right? This was what Wen Lanfeng was worried about. He was worried that Yu Qianqiu would suffer losses and it would be hard to explain to that person on Obedient Island. Wen Rui knew that the ancestor had been watching Yu Qianqiu silently, even though he didn't hear it clearly from the ancestor during this period of time. He was quite protective of Yu Qianqiu. He smiled and said, there were soul formation experts who rushed to the Mist Forest before, but they were startled by that hero. They were afraid of following in the footsteps of Hua Zongming and Pu Taidong, so they rushed back to make arrangements. Even if they want to take action, I'm afraid they have to wait until they see you. The two had already walked out of the holy hall and were bathed in the sunshine outside. When Lanfeng stopped quietly and said slowly, go to the heart-cleansing lake and tell them that I'll see them tomorrow. Obedient Island in the Demon Domain, on the edge of the 1,000-mile lake. Nongzhu was holding a long and slender golden sword. She flicked it with her fingers and sighed constantly. After a long time, he turned around and pointed at the ancestor of Nanming helplessly and said, You. You're also known as the #1 blacksmith in the cultivation world. The materials that Old Bai collected with great difficulty to refine a upper-grade spiritual treasure were actually refined into a middle-grade spiritual treasure by you. I don't even know what to say about you. The Nanming old ancestor, who had a strong body and a tall physique, hung his head and said somewhat innocently, I was very confident this time and was about to succeed. At the crucial moment, who knew that Qinghuo would play tricks on us? The intensity of the fire fluctuated. It's like seeing a ghost. He said to Bai Changchun, who was standing quietly by the lake, with great shame, Bai Changchun, I'm really sorry. I didn't want this to happen. He didn't know how many times he had said this apology. Nongzhu rolled his eyes and knocked on his shoulder with his sword. He said with a, hey, Old Bai is going to the East Holy Land. Don't you know what a good sword means to him? What's the use of just apologizing? I say. Don't hide the treasures of your Xian Island anymore. Spill them all out and see if you can refine another one. The ancestor of Nanming's face twitched painfully. He pushed away the sword that Nongzhu put on his neck and gritted his teeth and said, all right, I'll go back and take a look. I'll try to refine one before you go to the East Holy Land. I hope it can help you. Haha. That's right. Nongzhu smiled wickedly. Shamelessly, she wrapped her arms around Nanming ancestor's neck and asked, do you want me to go with you? The ancestor of Nanming pushed him away in disgust. Just as he was about to scold him, he heard Bai Changchun say indifferently, Nanming, I appreciate your kindness. There's no need to trouble yourself. You don't have to feel guilty. I've seen the process of refining. It's not your fault. It's that Qinghua that suddenly had a problem. I lost my life. This is heaven's will. Nongzhu, who was making faces, and the disgusted ancestor of Nan Ming were stunned at the same time. Nongzhu said in shock, "Old Bai, what do you mean?" "Don't worry. It's okay. Nan Ming was willing to do it. No one forced him." "Nan Ming, tell me, did you do it willingly?" As he spoke, he kicked the ancestor of Nan Ming's butt and let him speak for himself. Chapter 545. Ancestor Nan Ming glared at him with extreme disgust. This guy's habit of getting physical was really annoying. Unfortunately, he had made a mistake, so he didn't want to argue with him. He turned around and said, "Bai Changchun, try again." Bai Changchun turned around and said indifferently, "Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need. I can't break your rules. Otherwise, when I go to the East Holy Land, you'll be in endless trouble." "Of course not." Nongzhu jumped between the two and patted her chest. "If we don't say it, who will know that Nan Ming broke the rules?" "Nongzhu, don't say any more. Rules are rules. If I break them once, there will be a second time. The rules of Xian Island can't be broken on my head." "I can't afford to owe you this favor," Bai Changchun said. "What kind of stupid rules are those?" Nongzhu shouted at ancestor Nan Ming unreasonably. Nan Ming was speechless. He understood that Nongzhu was anxious about Bai Changchun's matter, so she spoke without thinking. "Nongzhu, don't make things difficult for him," Bai Changchun frowned. Nongzhu stared at ancestor Nan Ming angrily. The latter smiled helplessly and cupped his hands at Bai Changchun. "Bai Changchun, I'm really sorry. I'll take my leave first." He felt ashamed to stay any longer. Bai Changchun smiled faintly. He knew that ancestor Nan Ming would feel uncomfortable if he stayed. He raised his hand and thanked, "Sorry for the trouble, I won't see you out." "I wouldn't dare." Nan Ming shook his head in shame. Then, he let out a clear whistle. After a while, his red dragon flapped its wings and flew over from afar. An illusory figure landed on the wyvern's back. Nan Ming, who was riding on the wyvern, was about to leave. Suddenly, he raised his hand and slapped his forehead, as if he had thought of something. "Bai Changchun, the cornucopia is about to be held. Maybe you can buy the materials you need. If you have all the materials, tell Nongzhu to bring this to me. I'll come immediately." Nan Ming threw out a dark shadow. Nongzhu caught it and took a look. It turned out to be the black tusk that was taken from the gate of the underworld to invite him. Bai Changchun was startled. "How can I do that? I have another item here. I can't break your rules." Nan Ming waved his hand and smiled. "My rules didn't say that I can't return someone's things. Bai Changchun, don't make me leave Obedient Island with guilt again." She still owed him a favor. Bai Changchun wasn't a long-winded person. He raised his hand to thank her for the second time and said, "I won't be sending you off. Farewell, Senior Nan Ming." On the other side, Ze and Hibiscus bowed together, while Miss Mu followed a few steps behind. "Farewell." Nan Ming returned the greeting and waved at the three women. The wyvern under his feet let out a dragon roar, then flapped its wings and quickly flew away, turning into a black dot and disappearing. Nongzhu weighed the thing in his hand and said with satisfaction, "This old man knows his place." He tossed it into his storage pouch and shook the golden sword in his hand. "Since you have no use for this, why don't you leave it with me for now? I'll keep it safe for you." As soon as he finished speaking, a strong force pulled the sword away from his hand. The sword was floating in front of Bai Changchun, and Bai Changchun was using 2 fingers to draw something on the sword. Nongzhu saw the word hibiscus engraved on the sword. Bai Changchun waved his sleeve and the golden sword flew out with a whoosh. It floated straight in front of Hibiscus, who was about to turn around, emitting a faint golden light. The 3 women looked at each other, then at the two seniors by the lake, not knowing what they meant. Ze suddenly exclaimed, "There are words on it. Hibiscus, ah. Hibiscus, your name is written on it. Ah." Ze immediately realized that it was a spiritual treasure given to Hibiscus by Senior Bai. She licked her lips with her bright red tongue and pushed Hibiscus with a face full of envy. "Hurry up and thank Senior Bai. There are words personally engraved by Senior Bai on it. It's a gift for you." Miss Mu was also full of envy. A spiritual treasure with words personally engraved by Lord Torture Envoy. Ah. Is it a gift for me? Hibiscus was at a loss of what to do. She looked at Bai Changchun weakly, only to see Bai Changchun slightly nodding at her. "Thank you, master." Hibiscus hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. After staying here for a while, she had already followed Yu Qianqiu and called Bai Changchun master, under Nongzhu's instruction and Bai Changchun's tacit consent. Hibiscus was a little confused and didn't know what it meant. She just thought that she should call Bai Changchun master after following Yu Qianqiu. Nongzhu secretly sighed that this girl had a good life and followed a good man. Although that guy was not a good person, he really treated her well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent her to Shuntian Island. In the end, she didn't know what kind of virtue this girl had accumulated in her previous life, but she actually fell for Bai Changchun. Bai Changchun, who had always been cold, suddenly asked Nongzhu one day, "Yu Qianqiu is my disciple, and Hibiscus is my disciple's wife. Shouldn't this girl also call me master like Yu Qianqiu? Isn't it a little inappropriate to call me senior?" At that time, Nongzhu was completely dumbfounded as if she was struck by lightning. When she came to her senses, she kept digging her ears with her fingers, thinking that she had heard wrongly. She hurriedly asked, "Old Bai, what did you say? Say it again, I didn't hear it clearly." "Humph." Bai Changchun swung his hand and left with a bad look on his face. Ancestor Nanming, who was still present at that time, shook his head and said, "That girl Hibiscus is so lucky." "Nanming, what did old Bai say just now?" Nongzhu still couldn't believe it and pulled Ancestor Nanming to ask again. After Ancestor Nanming repeated Bai Changchun's words, Nongzhu was dumbfounded again. She had known Bai Changchun for so many years. This old guy was unyielding and would never give in to anyone or anything. Only others begged him, and he had never begged anyone or anything. When did she hear him say such words? Although it was a casual sentence, the meaning behind it was obvious. He wanted Hibiscus to call him master like Yu Qianqiu. However, with his proud and aloof character, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to ask Hibiscus to call him master. If Nongzhu wasn't stupid, she would know what to do. However, Nongzhu just wanted him to say it again. How could Bai Changchun say it again? Naturally, he swung his sleeves and left with a bad look. "Pa!" Nongzhu, who came to her senses, slapped herself hard on the face. Ancestor Nanming chuckled and said, "Slap, slap hard. Slap another one." It was originally a teasing remark, but who knew that Nongzhu would slap another one hard, which made Ancestor Nanming dumbfounded. When did this guy become so obedient? Ancestor Nanming curiously stretched his head over and said suspiciously, "Slap another one for me to see." F***CKU. Nongzhu kicked him to the ground, turned around and left. This made Ancestor Nanming inexplicably jump up and curse. Crazy. After a while, Nongzhu dragged the frightened Hibiscus back. After finding Bai Changchun, she pointed to the ground and said to Hibiscus, "Kneel down. From today on, you will follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master." Bai Changchun suppressed his anger and wanted to explode at Nongzhu. With his status in the cultivation world, did he need to force anyone to call him master? As long as he opened his mouth, there would be a long line of people begging him. He thought it was something important. So it was this. Hibiscus was stunned. She thought it was right to follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master. It was what she should do. She immediately knelt down and weakly called, "Master." Bai Changchun, who was filled with rage, was called master. Whether it was anger or anger, it all disappeared without a trace. After being stunned for a while, he raised his hand and said, "Get up." From then on, Hibiscus called Bai Changchun master. Nongzhu still could not understand why this girl looked like an idiot and timid. How was she better than her daughter? She was not as pretty as her daughter. She had recommended her daughter Ze to old man Bai to be his disciple several times, but the old man just did not like her. She was so angry. When she asked about Hibiscus's background, she explained it clearly. She was originally the illegitimate daughter of an elder of Fuxian Island and was an ugly girl who was bullied. Later, Yu Qianqiu used the Rui pill to help her restore her appearance. Speaking of the Rui pill, Nongzhu was so angry at Yu Qianqiu. Last time in Dang City, this guy said he only had one and Ze snatched it. She insisted that he pay for it. After asking Ze, she found out that this guy actually gave it to her. He did not snatch it at all. He was lying to her, and there was more than one pill. Good boy, wait and see. Hand it over obediently and we'll talk later. Putting this matter aside, even if Hibiscus was from Fuxian Island, the #1 sect in China's cultivation world, she was not as good as the daughter of the island master of purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, the famous soul formation expert Nongzhu. After thinking about it, she could only think that Hibiscus was lucky. Perhaps old man Bai was doing this out of respect for his precious disciple. No matter what, this master was very, very precious. In the cultivation world, it was comparable to any powerful magic treasure. As long as Hibiscus said that her master was Bai Changchun, she could do whatever she wanted in the cultivation world. As long as Bai Changchun was alive, no one would dare to touch her. Sigh. This girl's value doubled in the blink of an eye after she called him master. At this moment, Hibiscus stood up and reached out her hands to grab the sword with sincerity and excitement. No matter how immature she was, she knew that this sword was a spiritual treasure. She had only heard of it in legends. She did not expect to get one today. Moreover, it was originally the sword of the world's #1 expert, but now it was given to her. Before she could grab it, the sword lost its strength and gently fell into her hands. Hibiscus held it and bowed to Bai Changchun sincerely. Suddenly, her hands became light. Ze, who was at the side, shouted loudly as she snatched the treasured sword into her hands. She caressed it lovingly. Then, she hugged Hibiscus and said, "Hibiscus, I'm so jealous of you." Humph. On the other side, when Nongzhu saw her daughter's pitiful look, she felt a surge of jealousy in her heart. With a livid face, she turned to look at Bai Changchun and said, "Old Bai, what do you mean? With our relationship, you can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Do you have any more treasures on Shantian Island? Find one, write something on it and give it to Ze." Chapter 546. He made it sound easy, but he made it sound like treasures were like weeds that could be plucked from the roots on Shantian Island. Bai Changchun glanced at him coldly. This guy would go crazy from time to time. Bai Changchun ignored him and turned to walk to the center of the island. Nongzhu blocked in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Ze is your junior after all. It's not too much to ask you to give her a treasure as a gift." Bai Changchun stared at him, feeling angry and funny at the same time. Even if he wanted to give her a gift, he had never seen someone so thick-skinned as to ask for a gift. He said slowly, "I don't have any treasure here." Nongzhu was stunned. He believed what Bai Changchun said. He dared to say anything, but he would never lie. So he said gloomily, "How about I find a treasure and you write something in front of Ze and then give it to her? I'm not as bored as you." Bai Changchun shouted in a low voice, "Get out of my way, or don't blame me for being rude. I won't let you go even if you beat me to death." Wait, I seem to have a sword at the level of spiritual treasure." Nongzhu checked his storage bag. He was fearless because he knew that Bai Changchun would not go too far even if he wanted to teach him a lesson. Bai Changchun's face instantly turned cold. He hated it when someone took advantage of his weakness. He made a grabbing gesture with his right palm, and there was a faint chi of chi surrounding it. Obviously, he wanted to teach Nongju a lesson. At this moment, Ze, who was hugging Furong, suddenly said with a stern expression, "Furong, how about I become Yu Qianqiu's woman like you? In that case, I can also call Senior by Master. Perhaps Senior Bai will also give me something." Lady Mu was stunned, and so was Furong. The two girls looked at her serious face and did not know if she was joking or serious. Ze hugged Furong's arm and shook it. "What's wrong? Furong, are you not willing?" Furong was stunned and shook her head. She replied with difficulty, "No, as long as Yu Qianqiu is willing, I will listen to him." Her words were so powerful that Bai Changchun's anger disappeared completely. His expression was indescribable. He did not look at the girls but stared at Nongju. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, but none of them knew how precious it was. Nongju, who was engrossed in checking the storage bag, was stunned. In an instant, she froze there motionlessly. After a long time, it was as if he had woken up from a deep slumber for millions of years. He slowly raised his head and met Bai Changchun's gaze. His eyes were a little unfocused, as if he had been badly frightened. Then, he slowly turned his head to look at the girls. A mocking expression slowly appeared on Bai Changchun's face. This expression had not appeared on his face for more than 2,000 years. He raised his finger and said, "Nongju, did you hear that? If you want me to give you a treasure with inscriptions, it's very simple. Purple dress, just do as you say." With their cultivation, it would be easy for them to not let the women hear their conversation. The three women looked at each other, each with their own thoughts, and did not pay attention to the movements of the two senior experts. After Ze heard Furong's reply, her face suddenly flushed red. She was stunned for a while before she suddenly smiled and said, "I was just joking with you. I won't be that swindler's woman." "Furong, did I scare you?" As she said this, she stuffed the sword back into Furong's hand. Even though she said this, the guilty conscience in her eyes was noticed even by Furong, let alone the others. Furong opened her mouth, but did not know what to say. Suddenly, an angry roar resounded. "You didn't scare the others, but you scared me." Nongju teleported over and stared at Ze with bright eyes. She said, "Ze, tell me, were the words you said just now the truth?" Ze's eyes darted around, not daring to meet her master's eyes. She pouted and said, "I was just joking." She replied casually, but in her heart, Nongju said, "It's over, it's over." He was a veteran in love affairs, and had dealt with countless women. What kind of women had he not seen? His daughter's words and actions had completely betrayed her inner thoughts. Nongju felt a little dizzy. Of all people, why did it have to be that guy with an extremely bad character, who made her gnash her teeth the most? Heavens! Is this your retribution for me in this life? For the sake of my daughter, I have already cultivated myself. Why did you? Nongju silently raised her head and asked the heavens speechlessly, but the heavens were also speechless. "Nongju, what kind of treasure do you want me to inscribe on? If worse comes to worst, I will go all out and personally go to Xianshan Island to look for Nan Ming." Bai Changchun said with a serious face, adding insult to injury. Ziyi's pretty face turned even redder. She understood the unspoken meaning in Elder Bai's words. After looking at her daughter's face, Nongju really felt dizzy, so dizzy that the world was spinning. He held his forehead with one hand and shouted angrily, "Bai Changchun, shut up." Ha! For the first time in Obedient Island, the cruelest torture envoy in the history of the demon domain laughed heartily. With a flash, he disappeared into the door of the big house at the center of the island. "Master, what's wrong?" Ze asked guiltily, worried that her master was angered by her. "Nothing." Nongju waved her hand and said nothing more. He knew that it was useless to forcefully stop this kind of thing. It probably had no effect on that brat at all, and it would hurt his daughter's heart instead. He had hurt too many women's hearts in his life, but he didn't want to hurt his daughter. Retribution. I lost, so miserably. Nongju murmured to herself with a pale face. She walked towards the big house in a daze, her back hunched and her step staggered. Mr. Nongju, the famous free cultivator who was known as the most handsome man in the cultivation world, seemed to have aged 1,000 years in an instant. He had long noticed that his daughter had an unusual feeling for Yu Qianqiu, but his daughter had always been his darling, so how could he let that bastard take her away so easily? Therefore, Nongju had been holding back his anger, and from time to time, he wanted to beat up Yu Qianqiu to vent his anger. He remembered that when Yu Qianqiu first came to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, he had warned Yu Qianqiu not to have any improper thoughts about his daughter. It seemed that that brat really did that, and he could see that Yu Qianqiu did not have any ideas about his daughter. However, the god of fate favored that brat very much, and helped that brat to put the shackles of fate on his daughter that she could not break free from. Yu Qianqiu, who was thousands of miles away, did not do anything to him, but hit his soft spot. Nongju, who had been secretly holding back his anger, was completely defeated. That was why he said, "I lost," so miserably. The feeling of losing the most precious thing made him feel lost. Ze looked at her master's back blankly, wondering if she had done something wrong. Nongju staggered into the big house, and collapsed on the ground. She seemed to have no strength left in her body, and lay there with her limbs open. Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged, stared at her and frowned. He knew that Nongju loved Ze, and he could understand her feelings, but he did not say anything. There was silence between them. After a long time, Nongju sighed, "Old Bai, you saw it?" "What?" "Ze and Yu Qianqiu." "I never worry about that thing, because it is useless to worry about it. The more I worry about it, the worse it will be." Bai Changchun shook his head slightly, and then sighed, "Nongju, let go. Ze is not a child. You keep her by your side, which is not love. She needs her own life, good or bad, bitter or spicy. It is something she must experience in her life, and she needs to taste it by herself. You filter all the taste, and only give her sweet food. You should know that if she eats too much sweet food, she will get tired of it, and it will also become bitter." Nongju stared at the beam of the house, and murmured, "I don't want to restrict her, I just want her to have a good ending. The world is big, and everything is reproduced, but they all end up in the same place. Only an eternity without eternity can be eternal, so what kind of ending is a good ending?" Bai Changchun asked, "Do you think that Yu Qianqiu's ending is not good for Ze?" "Of course you think so. Yu Qianqiu is your disciple. Of course you think he is good." Nongju rolled his eyes, lying there. With a few words of consolation, he felt a little better. He regained some of his vitality, unlike before when he was like a piece of rotten wood. "Let's not talk about this, you won't listen to me. Help me do something," Bai Changchun said. Nongju, lying on the ground, tilted his head and asked, "What is it?" "Find Yu Qianqiu, and ask him what happened in the mist forest." "An." Bai Changchun thought for a while, and then said, "Ask him why he can go in and out of the mist forest at will." Nongju's eyes brightened, and he quickly climbed up, patted his forehead, and said, "Why didn't I think of this? If the treasure of the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch is really in the mist forest, it doesn't matter if the refining failed. With the convenience of Yu Qianqiu entering and exiting the mist forest at will, he should be able to get the sword of the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch. Maybe he has already succeeded. TSK. Did you think of this a long time ago? No wonder you didn't have any reaction when the refining failed. Nonsense." Bai Changchun snorted, "The mist forest is related to the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch, but it can't have the treasure of the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch. Don't let your imagination run wild." Nongju raised his hand to pinch his chin, and looked at Bai Changchun suspiciously. "How do you know the mist forest is related to the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch? How do you know that the treasure of the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch can't be in the mist forest? Did the former torturer tell you something? Don't be too curious. Some things have nothing to do with you, and I won't tell you, so don't ask." Bai Changchun refused directly. Nongju was so curious that she scratched her head and ears, and the unhappiness just now had long disappeared. She tentatively asked, "Is there a big secret in this?" A big secret involving the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch? Tell me a little. Chapter 547. Bai Changchun glanced at him indifferently and said, "The Demon King of Swords created the Demon King of Demons. Some things about him have been passed down from generation to generation by the torture envoys and will not be disclosed to outsiders. You had the chance to know, but you gave it up. Even so, I can give you another chance. If you swear to take over as the next torturer, I'll tell you without you even asking. Do you really want to know?" Nongzhu, who was dawdling and acting shamelessly, was stunned. His face twitched for a while before he shrank back and said embarrassedly, "I just asked casually. It's fine if you don't want to tell me, but you don't have to be so serious. Don't you want to know?" Bai Changchun snorted and said, "I trust the judgment of the former torture envoy." Nongzhu waved his hand and said, "Forget it. That old thing makes me nervous. You'd better tell your precious disciple." It was not worth it for him to put on the shackles of the Demon King of Demons for a secret that had nothing to do with him. He lived a carefree life now. He could eat, sleep, leave, and stay as he pleased. The world was big, and he could do whatever he wanted. Go early and come back early, Bai Changchun said coldly. He was urging him to hurry up and stop dawdling. Humph. Nongzhu got up unhappily and said while pulling his clothes, "It's my bad luck to meet you. You always order me around. I just want to ask you a question. You can go by yourself. Why do you always ask me to pass the message?" Although he said so, he also knew that if Bai Changchun showed up in all the countries to look for someone, it would be a little too noisy. This guy didn't show up easily. Once he did, he would shock the world and make all the practitioners panic. Those who didn't know would think that something big was going to happen again. There was no other way. He was so famous. Walking to the door, Nongzhu suddenly turned around and asked, "According to the news from Wenlanfeng recently, Yu Qianqiu is making more and more trouble. Aren't you afraid that he won't be able to clean up the mess?" "There's nothing bad about it. The bigger the trouble, the better. If it was too quiet, it would create trouble for him. Let him get used to it, then I can leave in peace," Bai Changchun said calmly. Nongzhu was dumbfounded. She really wanted to call him a lunatic. It turned out that this old thing really let his apprentice do whatever she wanted. For the growth of his apprentice, he used the whole cultivation world as a whetstone. His mood had fluctuated too much today, and he didn't want to be agitated anymore. Nongzhu flashed outside and went to the sound transmission formation left by ancestor Nan Ming. After sending a message to Wenlanfeng, she quickly flew away. In the sacred land of Baiwan Nation, ancient trees covered the sky densely. In the depths of the jungle, the surface of the heart-cleansing lake was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. From time to time, various kinds of birds would fly past. There were many pavilions and buildings by the lake, and the morning mist curled up like smoke. It was like a fairyland on earth. This was the place where the literati of Baiwan Kingdom used to entertain their guests. Occasionally, there would be people walking back and forth between the pavilions. There were also cultivators in groups of 3 to 5 who were chatting together. From time to time, people would descend from the sky. Most of them rejected the disciples sent by the Wen family to attract the guests and joined the crowd of cultivators to chat. At this moment, the sound of someone flying through the air could be heard. From the sound, it didn't sound like an ordinary expert. Everyone looked up. As soon as they looked up, they saw an old man in a black robe stopping in midair. He laughed and said, "Brother Changsho, I didn't expect you to be one step ahead of me." The person was Yin Baikong. Many people greeted him, but many turned their heads away in disgust. Below, there were 4 people standing on a stand that extended to the lake. Compared to other places, this stand was bigger, but there were fewer people. There was no other reason than that the 4 people below were the top 10 experts in the cultivation world. They were all experts in the late soul formation stage. Cultivators had their own circles, and it was difficult for those who were not of a high enough level to gather together. Just like in the secular world, the top figures' levels were too high, and they didn't have a common language with those of a lower level. Small figures couldn't afford to play with them. "Een Bai Kong, you're late." The gray-robed old man leaning against the railing glanced at him. This person was the lord of the eastern nation, the palace master of the heavenly peak cloud palace, Hu Changsho. Een Bai Kong landed beside him with a string of shadows. Just as he was about to speak, someone laughed and said, "Een Bai Kong, you look good." Een Bai Kong turned around and glanced at the three people standing a few meters away. He cupped his fists indifferently and said, "Pei Fong, O Yangda, Qi Jujuan, long time no see." The three of them looked at each other and smiled. It was a smile that harbored evil intentions. A fat man in blue slowly moved towards Een Bai Kong. He was plump and round, and his face was covered in grease. He looked like a rich landlord. This person was the lord of the Thousand Joy Nation, a late soul formation stage expert, Pei Fong. He nodded solemnly and said, "It has been a long time. I heard that your grandson was kidnapped, so I wanted to meet you and tell you to restrain your grief. Who knew that you were really willing to take out 300 million high-grade spirit stones to ransom him? This Pei is very surprised. As expected of the boss behind the World Chamber of Commerce, you're very rich." The two of them stood together. They were about the same height, but one was fat and the other was thin. The difference in size was too great. Een Bai Kong narrowed his eyes and sneered, "Fatty Pei, you were lucky to escape last time. Do you want to fight again today?" "What do you mean by lucky to escape?" "Last time, it was your fatty grandpa who had an urgent matter and left first." "What? You want to fight again here?" Pei Fong looked around and the fat on his face shook. He clicked his tongue and said, "I don't mind, I can accompany you anytime. But this place is beautiful and it's Wen Lanfeng's territory. I'm afraid you don't have the guts." "Fatty Pei, you're not afraid, do you think I am? If you dare come, I'll accept." Een Bai Kong retorted. At this time, the lords of the surrounding countries were watching. Even if they were afraid of Wen Lanfeng, they couldn't lose in a verbal argument in public. Otherwise, they would lose face. Oh Yangda and Qi Jujuan looked at each other and slowly walked to the left and right of Pei Fong. The former said indifferently, "It's better to have fun together than to have fun alone. If you two don't mind, let us join in." "That's right." Qi Jujuan, who was wearing a golden robe, agreed. He was the lord of Nine Thais, and the former was the lord of Great Liao. Both of them were late soul formation experts, and they were in the same group as Pei Fong. Their words were pleasant to the ear, and they seemed to be joining in the fun. But the surrounding people could see that their intention was obvious. They wanted to beat Een Bai Kong up with three people. Een Bai Kong laughed and turned around. "Brother Changsho, it's rare to have a fun time." His tone was meaningful. Hu Changsho, who was facing the heart-cleansing lake with his hands behind his back, said without turning his head, "Since it's a fun time, the more the merrier. Count me in." Chapter 548. Needless to say, Hu Changsho was definitely on Een Bai Kong's side. Hee. Interesting. Many lords from various countries smiled lasciviously, rubbing their hands in anticipation. 5 late-stage spirit-severing experts actually wanted to fight 3 against 2 in Wenlanfeng's territory. It was definitely exciting and not to be missed. This trip was definitely worth it. Of the top 10 experts in the cultivation world, Bai Changchun and Wenlanfeng, ranked first and second, had always relied on their profound cultivation to act independently and never did things like forming a gang. The remaining 8 people were not so confident. Perhaps it was because they felt insecure, perhaps it was for common interests, or perhaps it was to resist other powerful forces. They gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. Bing Qingzi, Yin Baikong, and Hu Changshou were jackals of the same tribe. O Yangda, Qi Zhejuan, and Pei Fong were entangled together. There were also 2 others who thought their cultivation was higher than these 6. The 2 felt that they were evenly matched, so they reluctantly grouped together. These 2 might have been overconfident, thinking that no one in the world could beat them together. Back in the East Sea, they were not convinced by Bai Changchun. At the same time, they seemed to have taken some wrong medicine and joined forces with great confidence to challenge the world's #1 expert. In the end, Bai Changchun gave the 2 of them a quick death. They no longer had the chance to be alive and kicking. They were dead. From then on, 2 of the top 10 experts were gone. Therefore, a large group of mid-stage spirit-severing experts became the candidates for the 2 vacant spots. No one was convinced by each other and felt that they had the ability to be ranked among the top 10 experts. Sometimes, this kind of false reputation could also drive people crazy. For this false reputation, there would be endless friction. Once these 5 people started fighting, 1 or 2 of the top 10 experts would die. Wouldn't that mean that there would be 1 or 2 vacancies? It would be best if they could infuriate Wenlanfeng and kill 1 or 2 of them. That would be even better. Everyone looked at the 5 of them expectantly. Hu Changshou silently stood beside Yin Baikong. The 2 stood calmly and a faintly discernible killing intent began to surge. The 3 people opposite them looked at each other and revealed a cold smile. 3 against 2, this kind of opportunity was rare. The fat on Pei Fong's face trembled as he said, "Should we wait for Bing Qingzi to come? Otherwise, he will say that we are bullying with numbers." Wait for Bing Qingzi? Aren't you afraid of biting your own tongue? Yin Baikong sneered, "I heard that you, Fatty Pei, have escaped death more than 10 times in the hands of Bing Qingzi. Aren't you afraid that you won't have another chance to escape this time?" Hu Changshou said indifferently, "It escaped from me 5 times. Yin Baikong stared blankly for a moment before replying, "It's the same. I have 5 times with me." The 2 of them stared blankly for a moment before looking at Pei Fong with disdain. Whispers immediately rang out in the surroundings. Normally, it was impossible for them to fight against soul formation final stage experts. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful person among them? Pei Fong glanced around proudly. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he had an expression that said, "What do you guys know? Don't talk nonsense. If you have the ability, don't say it." Qi Zhejuan snorted coldly and shot into the air. Pei Fong held his belly and laughed. Then, he and O Yangda flashed into the air at the same time. The 3 of them looked down. A thick and forceful aura filled the air. Yin Baikong squinted his eyes and stared at the sky. He smiled evilly and said, "Brother Changshou, I'll leave the damn fatty to you. Don't let him escape again. I'll handle the other 2. Hu Changshou replied with action. He teleported into the air and stood opposite Pei Fong expressionlessly. Yin Baikong followed closely behind. The 5 of them were filled with killing intent. The intense killing intent frightened the birds and beasts in the forest and caused them to flee. The people below were also on standby. This battle could be considered as the pinnacle battle of the cultivation world. A battle between soul formation final stage experts was not child's play. Even the slightest ripple could cause a lot of trouble. The spectators had to be prepared to dodge at any time. Bing Qingzi, who was supposed to be part of the battle, was currently in a desolate mountain not far from Baiwan Nation's sacred land. The small hillside was overgrown with weeds. On a protruding bluestone, Bing Qingzi, whose hair and beard were all white, stood quietly. A light breeze blew against his thin white robe. Apart from his face, his entire body seemed to be completely white. Man Hu and his brothers were obediently standing at the side. Yan Juexing quickly sized up the old man in front of him. This was the first time he had seen a legendary soul formation stage expert. Furthermore, it was an expert at the late-stage soul formation stage. Even if he had a heart of stone, he could not help but feel slightly nervous. Bing Qingzi, who was looking down from above, was also sizing up this genius who cultivated the demonic book. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was sighing in his heart. Countless people had died. Finally, there was hope to break a curse that had bound many people for generations. His cultivation was not low among the top 10 experts. However, he had wasted too much energy in order to find someone who could form a demonic body and cultivate the demonic book. As a result, Yin Baikong, whose cultivation was slightly lower than his, had taught 2 soul formation stage disciples. However, he did not have a single disciple under his name. His cultivation was not low, but he was the weakest among the top 10 experts. Even many soul formation middle stage experts were stronger than him. It was not easy for him to find the time to teach 7 disciples who were at the tribulation final stage. He treated each of them as if they were his own children. However, one of them died because of the demonic book's inheritor. It really made his heart ache. Activating the demonic art, he calmed down his slightly nervous state of mind. Yan Juexing bowed and said, "Junior Yan Juexing greets Senior Bing. I have always been indebted to Senior's kindness, but I did not have the chance to meet you. It is my great fortune to be able to meet Senior today. No need to be so courteous." Bing Qingzi raised his hand and sighed, "I don't deserve it." Why did it sound like he was mocking someone? Yan Juexing was slightly startled and said, "Senior, do you have any opinions about me? If you do, you can say it directly. I will definitely follow your instructions and will not have any opinions." Bing Qingzi glanced at Man Hu. Obviously, his disciple did not tell the truth to Yan Juexing. He paused for a while and said, "This is for later. I will find an opportunity to tell you the truth. Man Hu has already told me your purpose of coming." Before he finished his words, he suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the Wen family's sacred ground. Seeing his solemn expression, the others did not know what had happened and followed his gaze. Looking left and right, they did not find anything. After a while, they felt that there was a slight abnormal fluctuation in the air, and then they saw flocks of birds flying over from afar. "Master, is there something wrong?" Man Hu asked. "It's the breath of those old guys. What the hell are they doing? Are they going to fight in the Wen family's sacred ground?" Bing Qingzi frowned and quickly flew away without saying anything to them. For him, this distance was just a few blinks of an eye. In the sky above the heart-cleansing lake, when the situation was on the verge of breaking out, a flying sound was approaching rapidly. The spectators secretly clicked their tongues. Needless to say, the last person of the 2 groups of rivals had also arrived. Among the remaining 8 top experts in the cultivation world, only Bai Changchun and Wen Lanfeng were left. The rest were all here. Pei Fong and the other 2 people's faces changed slightly. They all understood that if it was really 3 against 3, they might still be a little weaker. Yin Baikong and Hu Changshou looked at each other. The former turned back and sneered, "Fatty Hu, aren't you waiting for Bing Qingzi?" "As you wish, Bing Qingzi is here. I hope you can be tough today and don't run away with your tail between your legs. Your escaping skills are unparalleled in the world. I really can't catch up with you." Hu Changshou said indifferently, "One ran away, but there are still 2 left." "Good." As he spoke, a white shadow flashed by. Bing Qingzi, who was covered in snow from head to toe, suddenly appeared in the sky. Bing Qingzi glanced at them and said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" Yin Baikong looked at Pei Fong and said with a smile, "Bing Qingzi, you came at the right time. We didn't recruit anyone, but someone actually provoked us first. Fatty Pei specifically said that he was waiting for you to settle the score." "Settle the score with me?" Bing Qingzi was slightly startled and looked at Hu Changsho with an inquiring look. The latter said indifferently, "Yes, everyone below heard it." Bing Qingzi stared at Pei Fong and said in a deep voice, "Fatty Pei, you stole my spirit beast from the snowy mountain last time. It's already good enough that I didn't settle the score with you, but you actually want to settle the score with me?" Pei Fong was speechless. Although he called out Bing Qingzi's name, he didn't mean to settle the score with him. Yin Baikong and Hu Changsho were obviously playing tricks on him. However, explaining now would make him seem afraid of trouble. He immediately said with his fat face shaking, "Bing Qingzi, don't accuse me wrongly. When did I go to the snowy mountain to steal your spirit beast? You think I can't recognize you just because you're wrapped in white?" Bing Qingzi snorted coldly, "My mysterious Yin palm doesn't feel good, does it?" Oh Yangda and Qi Jiujuan turned to look at Fatty. The latter frowned and said, "You went to steal from others again?" The two of them had been implicated countless times because of this guy's stealing. Allying with this guy was really bad luck. The most depressing thing was that this guy liked to steal from experts, especially from the three of them. But then again, the more powerful an expert's item, the more valuable it was. There were only a few top experts in the cultivation world. He didn't dare to steal from those that were too powerful. "What are you talking about?" Pei Fong patted his chest and said excitedly, "Don't tell me you don't believe me, but believe them? TCH. With your figure, it's hard to mistake you." Yin Baikong glanced at his chubby figure and sneered, "You're a famous thief. It's not the first time you've visited my God of Wealth peak. It's a disgrace to be on the same level as you among the top 10 experts." Pei Fong had a bellyful of anger when he talked about stealing from the God of Wealth peak. The last time he snuck into the God of Wealth peak, he only stole a tightly sealed broken box and was discovered by Yin Baikong. He didn't know what kind of valuable treasure was hidden inside, but it provoked Yin Baikong to chase after him for a few days and nights, causing him to be covered in injuries and almost lose his life. In the end, he had no choice but to throw away the broken chest and escape. It was because of this that he took the initiative to provoke Yin Baikong. Thinking of the injuries that took a long time to heal, Pei Fong was enraged and shouted, "Yin Baikong, don't confuse right and wrong here. If you want to fight, then bring it on. Hee hee. Don't think of leaving here alive today." Yin Baikong sneered. He was eager to use this opportunity to get rid of one or two troublesome fellows. "Yin Baikong, I haven't seen you for many years. You're getting more and more arrogant. Do you think this is your world commerce? Do you think you can call the shots here?" A faint voice reverberated in the surroundings. Then, the voice became louder and louder. Although it was soft, it became somewhat deafening in the end. The calm surface of the heart-cleansing lake was shaken by the continuous sound, and it lost its calmness. The leaves of the surrounding trees were also shaking non-stop. Such a profound cultivation. Everyone was shocked. They looked around but couldn't find where the voice came from. Although they couldn't see who was speaking, they knew it was Wen Lanfeng from the voice. The expressions of the 6 late-stage soul formation cultivators changed. They weren't strangers to Wen Lanfeng. Just from this voice, they could tell that Wen Lanfeng's cultivation was far stronger than before. No wonder he dared to go to the demon domain to find Bai Changchun. In the ghost manor, Yu Qianqiu had already moved out of the small courtyard. He didn't move outside the ghost manor, but to the main courtyard of the ghost manor. Under Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing's inquiry, the group of rogue cultivators who originally occupied the main courtyard happily gave up their territory. Since Senior Niu wanted to live here, no one dared to say anything. The ghost manor was no longer the world of rogue cultivators. Cultivators from various countries had gathered here. Although there were many people, no one dared to cause trouble. After all, they had been warned by their sects before coming here. Everyone's purpose in coming here was naturally to find Miao Yud. At the arched entrance of the main courtyard, Qin Jiaxing stood there like a door god. He looked at the group of people in front of him and said indifferently, "Come one by one. Don't rush. You can only enter if you pay." A large group of late-stage tribulation passing experts stared at Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the entrance. A mere early-stage tribulation passing expert actually dared to block their way. However, they couldn't do anything about it. Who told them to ask for help? Moreover, the people guarding the entrance were the mysterious Niu Yud's subordinates. To be honest, when Qin Jiaxing first faced so many late-stage tribulation-passing experts, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. He was so scared that his legs and stomach turned to jelly. But now, a person angrily strode out. Qin Jiaxing pointed at the nose of a late-stage tribulation-passing cultivator and said coldly, "It's your turn." The person stared at Qin Jiaxing and sneered, waiting to see what would happen. Gritting his teeth, he took out a storage bag and stuffed it into the person's hand. Just as he was about to rush inside, Qin Jiaxing grabbed him. "Wait!" The person shouted, "Let go." He wanted to kill Qin Jiaxing on the spot. Yes. 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Not a bad amount. After Qin Jiaxing injected his divine sense into the bag, he let go of the person, waved his hand and said, "You can go in." "You." The person was so angry that he clenched his fists and the bones in his body made cracking sounds. Qin Jiaxing coldly snorted and said expressionlessly, "Senior Niu's time is very precious. If you don't want to go in, then please get out of the way. There are people waiting behind you. However, you should know the rules, right? The money you received is not refundable." Chapter 549. That person flicked his sleeves and entered with a muffled sound. "Young man, be more polite with your words. Don't be too ruthless and leave some leeway for us to meet in the future." The one who said this was none other than Guan Zhongkai, who had a huge battle with Yu Qianqiu. He was originally in charge of the World Commerce Association's branch in Gold Casting City. After his master Sikong Ju arrived, he was sent over to invite Niu Yud. Because of Ghost Village's one-armed elder, it was inconvenient for a soul formation expert to personally come, so Sikong Ju could only let his disciple go first. What made Guan Zhongkai depressed was that many people from various countries came to invite Niu Yud, but Niu Yud refused to come out of Ghost Village. Those who wanted to see him had to line up. This ostentatious display was really not bad. The most infuriating thing was that Niu Yud actually raised the price. Those who wanted to see him had to pay a meeting fee of 100,000 high-grade spirit stones, otherwise he wouldn't see them. This was simply looting a burning house. If it wasn't for Ghost Village's one-armed elder having enough face and Niu Yud's unfathomable cultivation, Ghost Village would definitely be trampled to the ground today. Guan Zhongkai waited for half a day and saw this gatekeeper's arrogance and rudeness. Now that it was his turn and he was so close, he couldn't help but warn him. "Leave some leeway. There's such a saying in the cultivation world." Qin Jiaxing stood on the steps and glanced at him condescendingly. "When I was acting like a grandson in the past, I was polite to everyone, but I didn't see anyone leave me any leeway. They still didn't treat you as a human. Furthermore, I didn't go all out, I was just following Senior Niu's instructions and doing official business. All right. Cut the crap and see if you have enough money in your pockets. If not, then move aside and don't affect others." "You." Guan Zhongkai had the urge to go berserk and hit someone. A purple-clothed person behind him pulled him back and sighed, "Brother Guan, why bother with him? He's just a petty person intoxicated by success. There's still a long way to go." This person was Yulan Du, who had been hanging out with Guan Zhongkai for a long time. When he said this, his tone was long and he even pulled Guan Zhongkai towards the one-armed elder pruning branches at the side of the wall. He seemed to be telling Guan Zhongkai to endure it for now and find a chance to deal with this dog who relied on his master's power. Threat? If I follow boss closely, I won't be afraid no matter where I go. Qin Jiaxing stood there carelessly, still looking down on everyone else. He felt great in his heart. In his entire life, he had never dreamed that there would be a day where he would be able to dictate everything to a few hundred experts at the end of the tribulation transcendence stage. He had caused them to lose their temper and become obedient in front of him. Whether or not he would be retaliated against in the future was a matter for the future. In short, he had such a good time in his life. Even if he died, it would be worth it. When he thought of this, Qin Jiaxing straightened his back a little more. His calm gaze slowly swept across the crowd below. His bearing was steady and graceful, and he had the demeanor of a master. If a person wasn't afraid of anything and didn't care about anything, he would naturally be strong without any desires. The rogue cultivators who were huddled in the surroundings stared at Qin Jiaxing enviously. He thought to himself, this guy has finally made a name for himself. He's so bold that he dares to order a group of experts at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage. I'm so envious. Not long after, the person who went in earlier came out with an ashen face. Many people asked him what was going on, but he didn't answer and quickly flew away after he went out. The group of people looked at each other. They didn't know what Niu Yu did to the people who went in. Why did none of them have a good expression when they came out? Next. Qin Jiaxing shouted in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Guan Zhongkai gritted his teeth as he took out a storage bag and handed it over. With the previous example, he wasn't in a hurry. He waited for the arrogant guy at the door to count the spirit stones and get his permission before he strode in. The courtyard was deep and serene. After passing through the plum trees on both sides, he saw two people standing on a platform at the entrance of the main hall. The person standing to the side was expressionless, while the person facing him was staring at him with a smile. TSK. Foe, we meet again. When Yu Qianzhou saw that the person who came was actually Guan Zhongkai, he smiled even more happily. This must be Mr. Niu Yu. Guan Zhongkai didn't like this Niu Yu very much. He was the same as the guards outside and liked to look down on people. How could he greet a guest like this? However, he still forced a smile and cupped his fists at Yu Qianzhou. I'm Guan Zhongkai from the World Commerce Association. I'm here to meet you. I have something to discuss with you. As he spoke, he sized up the main hall, implying that they should go in and talk. Yu Qianzhou smiled and nodded. He turned around and slowly walked towards the main hall with his hands behind his back. Just as Guan Zhongkai went up the stairs, the person beside him interrupted and stopped him. The person said expressionlessly, "You've seen Senior Niu's face. Please go back. If you still want to talk to Senior Niu, please pay more. 200,000 superior grade spirit stones." Guan Zhongkai was stunned. When he reacted, his expression twitched. Are you kidding me? I paid 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. Just a meeting and that's it? That's right. Fu Chun didn't hide and explained cleanly. That 100,000 superior grade spirit stones is just the meeting fee. It doesn't include the cost of the conversation. Senior Niu's time is very precious. It's already rare that he's willing to meet you for 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. If you want to take up Senior Niu's time to chat, you naturally have to pay more. You guys must be crazy for money. 100,000 superior grade spirit stones for just one meeting? Guan Zhongkai was furious. He felt like he had been cheated. Please calm down. Fu Chun was neither arrogant nor rash. She continued politely. This rule isn't just for you. Everyone who came in before followed it. There were no exceptions. Please forgive me. Why didn't you say so earlier? You guys are cheating people on purpose. Of course not. Fu Chun said curiously, I told everyone who went out to tell the rules here to the people outside. Didn't they say anything? That can't be, right? Guan Zhongkai was stunned. He finally understood now. No wonder everyone who went out had a bad expression. When he asked them what was wrong, none of them answered. It seemed like they had suffered a loss and didn't want others to take advantage of them, so they deliberately hid it. If it's inconvenient, please return. Senior Niu's time is precious and he has a bad temper. If you take too long, you might attract unnecessary trouble. Fu Chun raised her hand politely to send them off. This was a blatant threat. Guan Zhongkai's face turned green and red. But what could he do? He had to bear with it. If he came here and told his master that he spent 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones and didn't even have a single conversation with Niu Yud, he would be scolded to death by his master. What he was most afraid of was that he couldn't see through Niu Yud's cultivation. It was obviously higher than his. Even if he wanted to lose his temper, he had to consider the consequences. 200,000 high-grade spirit stones for a simple conversation, isn't it a little too expensive? Guan Zhongkai was clearly admitting defeat since he could say such words. He had no choice. Money was a small matter. He wasn't spending his own money. The key was to complete the task his master gave him. How aggrieved. No, no, no. 200,000 isn't expensive at all. Fu Chun waved her hand and said, Senior Niu said that his value is the lowest and very fair. If it was the world's #1 expert, Bai Changchun, who wants to meet him, I'm afraid that even if you spend 100 million superior-grade spirit stones, he might not even meet you, let alone chat with him. How can this be compared? Guan Zhongkai almost choked to death. What kind of person was Bai Changchun? He couldn't be measured with money. Compared? Moreover, everyone has a value. He wouldn't do such a vulgar thing. Look. As long as he counted with her people fingers, would give him money, wanting to reason with him. Guan Zhongkai felt his scalp go numb. He quickly raised his hand and said, all right. You don't have to say any more. I admit defeat. 200,000, right? I'll give it to you. It took half a day to queue up. Master was still waiting in Gold Casting City. If this continued, how long would Master have to wait? Guan Zhongkai quickly rummaged through his storage bag and took out 200,000 superior-grade spirit stones. He stuffed them into Fu Chun's hands and said helplessly, count them. Fu Chun counted expressionlessly. She had become numb from counting money. She had long lost the excitement she had in the beginning. Boss's prepared excuses were used one after another. Today, she had finally seen it. In the past, she would fight over a piece of superior-grade spirit stone. Now, it was like child's play. This was called earning money. But then again, Boss was probably the only one who dared to play like this in the cultivation world. Please. Fu Chun kept the storage bag and respectfully led the way. This service attitude finally made Guan Zhongkai feel a little better in his heart. Yu Qianzhou smiled as he sat at the coffee table in the main hall. He held a cup of tea and took a sip. His eyes were focused on the clear tea in the cup. Fu Chun led him to his side and pointed to an empty seat on the other side of the coffee table. He said to Guan Zhongkai, please take a seat. The price to pay to speak to Mr. isn't small. Guan Zhongkai sat down and said sarcastically. Yu Qianzhou smiled and didn't reply. Guan Zhongkai frowned and said, don't tell me you want to collect money again? Please wait. Fu Chun said politely. He took out a transparent hourglass from his storage bag. It looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal. It wasn't big and looked small. The design was not bad. Fu Chun placed the hourglass upside down on the coffee table. After the sound of flowing sand could be heard, he quietly retreated to the side. Ah. Guan Zhongkai pointed at the hourglass and said in surprise, what does this mean? Are you going to collect money by the hour? Begin. Yu Qianzhou laughed and finally spoke. He placed the teacup on the table and pointed at the hourglass. You're talking about this. There are too many people looking for me. I have no choice but to do this. Otherwise, they would come and talk to me for half a day. When will it end? I'm a soft-hearted person. I can't refuse to see people looking for me. So, I can only set some harsh conditions. Please excuse me, haha. Chapter 550. You're soft-hearted? I think you're more like black-hearted. My grandmaster, Yin Bai Kong, is famous for doing business in the cultivation world, but he's never done it like you. Guan Zhongkai held back his words forcefully and didn't say it out loud. He pointed at the hourglass unhappily and said, looks like I'm not wrong, you charge by the hour. Look at your words, you're exaggerating. Yu Qianqiu smiled. There's nothing wrong with the hour, but you've already paid 200,000 for the conversation. I won't charge you for the rest of the time. Hearing this, Guan Zhongkai's slightly leaning body relaxed and he heaved a sigh of relief. But he was still cursing in his heart. What's the difference between paying 200,000 high-grade spirit stones in a single hour and robbery? No, it's even easier than robbery. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and saw his sullen face. He knew he was probably scolding him. This was within his expectations. If he couldn't hear it, then pretend he didn't know. What could he do? He coughed and said seriously, that Guan. What's your name again? Guan Zhongkai had just gathered his energy and was ready to talk about business, but his face darkened again when he heard this. He had just announced his name and the other party had forgotten about it. Clearly, he didn't care about him at all. Usually, he relied on his position as Yin Baikang's first disciple to be arrogant in the cultivation world. When had he ever been ignored like this? Actually, he didn't care about Niu Yud at all. Although he knew that Niu Yud might be a soul-forming master, he could tell from the way he addressed him and his actions that he didn't care about it at all. Who knew that the other party was even more blatant about his disregard? Helplessly, he held his breath and said in a low voice, Guan Zhongkai. Oh. Guan Zhongkai, I've heard of you, I've heard of you. Yu Qianqiu had a look of realization. He nodded and said, I heard that you're in charge of Gold Casting City and brought a lot of spirit stones to place a bounty on Yu Qianqiu's head. Is this true? I'm just following orders. Guan Zhongkai wasn't here to talk about this. He casually said, Mister, you're also concerned about this? Of course, I'm concerned. I heard the bounty is 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Yu Qianqiu paused and explained embarrassedly, it's not for the spirit stones, I just know Yu Qianqiu. It would be strange if it wasn't for the spirit stones. If it wasn't for the spirit stones, would you be so shameless as to do this? Guan Zhongkai casually replied with an, oh, and glanced at the slippery sand in the hourglass. He changed the topic and said, I came to find you because I have something important to discuss with you. He changed the topic, but Yu Qianqiu continued talking about himself. Guan Zhongkai's eyes lit up as he suddenly thought of something. He seemed to have received news that Niu Yud said that Xian Laosan had brought Yu Qianqiu to visit him. If that was the case, then Niu Yud might really be able to contact Yu Qianqiu. Guan Zhongkai gnashed his teeth as he thought of Yu Qianqiu. Admitting defeat in front of everyone last time was too embarrassing. If he wasn't Master's chief disciple and Master was a person who stood above tens of thousands of people in the World Chamber of Commerce, he would have ended up in a miserable state. Even so, when he returned, Master Sikongju was so angry that he almost killed him. After a round of cursing, he was severely punished, causing him to almost be unable to lift his head in the World Chamber of Commerce. This time, Master still gave him a chance to redeem himself by performing meritorious deeds. This hatred would never end. After a moment of silence, Guan Zhongkai's eyes flickered as he said, from Mister's tone, it seems that Mister has a way to capture Yu Qianqiu? Yu Qianqiu inadvertently glanced at the hourglass that had more than half of the fine sand leaking out. He coughed and said, insignificant Yu Qianqiu, heh. Let's get back to business. Honestly, if I can capture Yu Qianqiu, how much money will you give me? Yu Qianqiu is hiding in the fog forest. You really have a way to capture him? Guan Zhongkai asked in disbelief. Even Fu Chun, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but look at Yu Qianqiu a few times. This fog forest wasn't a place that anyone could enter. However, with Boss' unfathomable abilities, it really wasn't clear. This isn't something you should worry about. Yu Qianqiu raised his teacup and took a small sip. He slowly said, the key is whether the price can move me. Guan Zhongkai suddenly stood up and muttered, this. He slowly paced around the hall in deep thought. Even though world commerce was very rich and his position in world commerce wasn't low, the maximum amount of spirit stones he could use was at most 100 million. This was also the authority to use it in emergencies. Yu Qianqiu wasn't in a hurry and let him think slowly. He held his teacup and occasionally looked at the hourglass. It seemed that Fu Chun's gaze was also sweeping over the hourglass. After a while, Guan Zhongkai's expression returned to normal and he sat back down in his chair. He put on the face of a merchant negotiating and asked, "How much do you want? Name a price. We can discuss it." He looked calm on the surface but he was secretly excited. Looking at Miao Yud's appearance, he might really have a way to capture Yu Qianqiu. If it was true, then this trip was worth it. He had resolved two major matters for world commerce in one go. This merit was more than enough for him to wipe away his previous shame. Most importantly, he could capture Yu Qianqiu to vent his anger. This face, TSK. As expected of someone from world commerce. Yu Qianqiu was delighted and placed his teacup back on the table. He shook his sleeves and pushed out his palms, revealing all 10 of his fingers, 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. 1 billion? Guan Zhongkai was stunned and then sneered, "Mr. Niu, you must be joking. Is that trash Yu Qianqiu worth this price? It's too high, this is impossible. Your grandma is the trash, your father's net worth, F***K, priceless." Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched. He had just wanted to discuss the price of his capture with someone else and was secretly happy. He didn't expect to suffer a loss in the blink of an eye. Since it's impossible, then there's nothing more to say. Yu Qianqiu added with some pent-up anger, "Everyone knows the value of the 1,000 Swords Demon Monarch's treasure. Yu Qianqiu is a priceless treasure. A fixed price of 1 billion, not a single spirit stone less. If you want to take advantage, tell your world commerce to find someone who has the ability to capture Yu Qianqiu." He thought to himself, "You dare to call me trash in front of me? Bastard, just wait and see. One day, I'll chop you into a pile of trash and feed you to the dogs." Guan Zhongkai was stunned. He didn't know why he was angry at Yu Qianqiu. This person clearly had the face of doing business, but why was he so impatient when it came to discussing the price? No wonder he could only make such a shameless profit. He smiled and said, "Mister, why are you in such a hurry? We can slowly discuss the price." "I have to be in a hurry. I'm thinking for you." Yu Qianqiu knocked on the table expressionlessly, then pointed at the hourglass. He waved at Fu Chun and said, "Send the guest out." You. Guan Zhongkai almost choked to death. He stared at the hourglass and stuttered for a while, not knowing what to say. He wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew what it meant when the hourglass timer ended. Fu Chun, who was at the side, was stunned when she heard the two of them talking about 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. Even though he had broadened his horizons in the past few days, he still couldn't accept such a huge number. What kind of concept was 1 billion high-grade spirit stones? After being roused by his boss's words, he took a deep breath and walked to Guan Zhongkai's side. He raised his hand towards the door and said, "Please. Wait." Guan Zhongkai couldn't take it anymore. How could he just leave like this? After talking for half a day, they didn't talk about anything practical and had spent 300,000 spirit stones. Mr. Guan, how was he going to explain when he returned? You can't be the only exception, chief disciple's grand disciple couldn't be this wasteful. If this matter gets out, right? Senior Niu will really be embarrassed. Did he still want to work in the future? Please go back. Fu Chun raised his hand again to send the guest off. A ghost dared to brazenly blacken others. This wasn't something a normal person would do. Guan Zhongkai really wanted to curse, but he still cupped his hands towards Fu Chun and said, "Little brother, please wait a moment. Allow me to say a few more words." He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. "Please." Fu Chun's tone became stiff. He really didn't give any face. Anyway, with his boss at the side supporting him, he wasn't afraid at all. Wasn't it just a tribulation late-stage cultivator? There were still a lot of people outside waiting to see him. Don't pull and pull. Guan Zhongkai pushed Fu Chun's hand away gloomily. He anxiously shouted at Yu Qianqiu, Mr. Niu, please listen to me say a few more words. Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted and glanced at him. He picked up his tea and ignored him. Damn it. He dared to call me a bastard. Senior Niu, I really have something important to discuss with you. Guan Zhongkai finally stopped putting on airs and changed the way he addressed Mr. Niu. He had no choice but to admit defeat. Not to mention that he might not be a match for Mr. Niu, the key point was that he couldn't report back. Mr. Guan, you're not the only one who has something important to discuss with Senior Niu. Everyone said so. But rules are rules. Please. Fu Chun sent the guest off for the third time. I'm different from them. That's not right. Guan Zhongkai was startled and said with a face full of suspicion, I've been here for less than an hour. It seems like every one of them has been here for more than an hour. Could it be that Senior Niu is favoring one and discriminating against the others? Could it be that you don't like the people of world commerce? It's true that the people of world commerce are rich and envious. Yu Qianqiu continued to drink his tea. Without a word, Fu Chun lifted the lid of the teacup, indicating for him to explain. He really treasured his words like gold. Fu Chun sighed inwardly. Why was he rushing to be ripped off? He had already explained the same words to different people over a dozen times, right? Mr. Guan, you've really misunderstood Senior Niu. Fu Chun sighed and said, actually, it's for your own good. It's mainly to help you save money. So that you won't be unhappy after spending money. Save money for me? Guan Zhongkai had an expression that said the sun rose from the west. He asked in a neutral tone, what do you mean by that? I want to hear how it's for my own good. Chapter 551. Fu Chun looked at the boss who had a teasing expression and said bluntly, let me put it this way. The person before you also had 1 hour of talking time, but that person felt that talking to Senior Niu wasn't satisfying enough, so he paid for another hour of talking time. This. You see, if you also didn't feel satisfied enough, wouldn't you also have to pay for another hour of talking time? Isn't this saving you money and doing it for your own good? Yu Qianqiu was amused when he heard this, but felt that something was wrong. He gulped down a mouthful of tea and remained expressionless. Guan Zhongkai turned to look at Yu Qianqiu, then at Fu Chun in front of him. The muscles on his face twitched non-stop. He really wanted to kill this guy who was speaking so seriously. He felt that this kid was even more despicable than Niu Yud. He looked sincere but was actually treacherous. You mean that if I talk to Senior Niu again, I need to spend more money and add another hour of time? Guan Zhongkai's tone was slightly cold. As a member of the World Commerce Association who did business with the world, he had seen black-hearted profiteers, but he had never seen such a black-hearted one. Senior Niu, time is precious. Don't talk about such meaningless things. Fu Chun sighed and said, Mr. Guan, why do you need to spend this money? I'm really doing it for your own good so that I won't offend you for no reason. You should go back. There are still many people waiting behind you. I'll send you off. Yu Qianqiu looked at Fu Chun with satisfaction. Look at his eyesight. He had picked out a talent at first glance. She was truly someone of his generation. Only this kind of talent had a future in the cultivation world. It seemed that old fart Nongzhu was also like this. But look at how well he was doing. He was so envious of him. Fu Chun. Well done. These fellows from the big sects are all lowly people. They need to be taught a lesson. Go ahead and do it. I'll support everything. This boss specializes in taking care of these fellows who have their eyes on top of their heads. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and transmitted his voice. Guan Zhongkai's expression really darkened. Go back. What a joke. He wasn't Master's biological son. How could he allow himself to make a fool of himself again and again? Was there still a way out now? He finally understood why those people who had gone out earlier had such dark expressions on their faces. I'll endure. Guan Zhongkai heaved a long sigh, and without saying a word, he took out another bag of spirit stones from his storage bag and handed it to Fu Chun, saying, "By another round of time, 200,000 upper-grade spirit stones, count them clearly for me." "Mr. Guan, why are you doing this?" Senior Nyo said that he really doesn't want to earn money that goes against his conscience. Fu Chun gently pushed back. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Once upon a time, he would never be able to talk to a tribulation-passing realm expert of a famous sect like this. This bunch of arrogant fellows. Not to mention looking at them, they simply treated them like weeds. If they wanted to kill them, they could do so with a wave of their hands. How many loose cultivators' bones were still silently crying in the wilderness? How many rogue cultivators had been forced into a state worse than pigs and dogs? Now that he had this opportunity and his boss had spoken up to support him, he would be letting himself down if he didn't do his best. Boss was right, a bunch of sluts. Guan Zhongkai handed the storage bag over again and said word by word, "I did it voluntarily." This sentence made him want to cry. Was it really voluntary? It was 2F** king not voluntary, but there was really no other way. Unexpectedly, Fu Chun pushed the storage bag back and said in an embarrassed tone, "Aren't you making things difficult for me?" He offered 400,000 upper-grade spirit stones for the second round of time, and you only offered 200,000. If it's so little, who am I going to ask for it from? I can't afford it myself. 400,000? Guan Zhongkai suppressed his anger and said, "It was only 200,000 for the first round of time just now, why did it double in an instant?" "Mr. Guan, it's really not just for you. Everyone is like this. The rules were set by Senior Nyo." Fu Chun said helplessly. Guan Zhongkai glanced at Yu Qianqiu, then turned back and laughed angrily. "You don't even have a reason to raise the price just like that, aren't you guys going too far?" "Mr. Guan, you can't say that." Fu Chun explained solemnly, "Look, just the time you're wasting Senior Nyo's time is enough for 2 more people to come in and meet Senior Nyo. Then the meeting fee would be 200,000, and if you buy the second round of time, it would also be 200,000. Together, 400,000 is just right. Besides, no one is forcing you. If you're not willing, you can leave. I've already advised you to go back, but you... Brat, you're messing with me." Guan Zhongkai finally couldn't take it anymore and grabbed Fu Chun's clothes by his chest. His master was an early-stage soul formation expert, and his grandmaster was a late-stage soul formation expert. Furthermore, he was the chief disciple of the World Chamber of Commerce, the most powerful organization in the cultivation world. When had he ever suffered such a loss? Fu Chun looked at Yu Qianqiu with slight panic. After all, he had been suppressed by the despotic power of the large sects for too long, so he couldn't help but feel subconsciously afraid. Once someone made a move, he would more or less be a little afraid. "Oh ho! Today, you're the first to dare touch my people in front of me. The people from the World Chamber of Commerce are really something." The teacup in Yu Qianqiu's hand heavily slammed onto the tea table. With a cold humph, the terrifying aura contained within the black fire in his body instantly surged out. The temperature in the hall instantly dropped to freezing point. A boundless and ferocious icy aura instantly enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body. Despair, death, indifference, and all sorts of extremely negative emotions made Guan Zhongkai feel as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His face instantly turned pale and he let go of Fu Chun in a panic. He looked at Yu Qianqiu with a face full of fear and stammered, "Say. Senior, please calm down, there's something we can talk about." The taste of despair in the icy aura made it almost impossible for him to have any thoughts of resisting. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu was sitting there like the god of death from hell was staring at him. Fu Chun quivered and took a few steps back, breaking away from the heart-palpitating aura on Guan Zhongkai's body. He turned pale with fright as he looked at Boss. When he was grabbed by Guan Zhongkai, he felt that the terrifying aura that suddenly enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body came from Boss. It was a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble with fear. Although that terrifying aura wasn't targeted at him, Fu Chun didn't doubt that this aura alone could kill him. It was too terrifying. For the first time, Fu Chun looked at Yu Qianqiu with an expression of extreme reverence. She didn't know how high this boss's cultivation was. The abilities that he revealed were more and more frightening each time. Now you know there's something to talk about. Yu Qianqiu made an exception and spoke without asking for money. However, this wasn't a good thing for Guan Zhongkai. He said in an abnormally cold tone, "You dare to touch my people in front of me, are you tired of living?" Just this sentence caused Fu Chun's eyes to slightly redden. It felt so good to have someone to protect and support her. Ever since she stepped into the cultivation world, she had never heard such heartwarming words. They were better than anything else. Ms. Misunderstanding, Senior. Misunderstanding. Guan Zhongkai stood there trembling. He wanted to teleport away from that terrifying aura, but he found that the true essence in his body seemed to have frozen. The netherworld ghost fire that could separate the human world and the netherworld was no joke. It was the rolling black fire that burned between the human and ghost worlds. It was a symbol of life and death for humans and ghosts. It should be known that even with Bai Changchun's cultivation, he couldn't cross the netherworld fire sea, so its power could be imagined. When Yu Qianqiu was still in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, he could control the black fire's aura to deal with Ze, who was in the late stage of the tribulation passing stage. Now that his cultivation had soared to the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage, his ability to control the black fire's aura was not just a little bit better. After his aura locked onto Guan Zhongkai, he could sense his every move. He could increase the pressure at any time to prevent him from escaping, and he wouldn't be as careless as when he tortured Ze, causing her to faint on the spot. Of course, if Guan Zhongkai escaped before Yu Qianqiu's aura locked onto him, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't be able to do anything to him. After all, there was a huge difference in cultivation between the two of them. He wouldn't be able to catch up even if he wanted to. The key was that he was locked onto due to a moment of carelessness. Want to run? With his cultivation, it would be very difficult. If Yu Qianqiu wanted him dead now, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Misunderstanding? I think you're used to being arrogant. Yu Qianqiu coldly snorted, don't think that the world commerce is that great. There are some people and some things that your world commerce can't afford to offend. Do you believe that even if I kill you now, Yin Baikong won't be able to do anything to me? To be honest, with the new and old hatred, Yu Qianqiu really wanted to kill him now. But for the sake of long-term plans, he had to let him live for the time being. I believe you. Guan Zhongkai heard a glimmer of hope in his words and hurriedly grabbed onto it. Senior, please be magnanimous. He had completely given in. Humph. Magnanimous? This hand of mine is really expensive, and it's not just an ordinary kind of expensive. Also, Yu Qianqiu's face was cold and unyielding with killing intent. He didn't mean to scare him, but he did it on purpose. He slowly said, you should have known when you entered this door that my words are precious. Being forced by you to make an exception, hee. You tell me how you want to settle this debt. Junior is willing to offer 1 million high-grade spirit stones as an apology to Senior. Guan Zhongkai hurriedly followed up. He was now 100% sure that this Niu Yud was a soul formation expert because the aura he emitted was too terrifying. He could actually control him to the point where he couldn't run even if he wanted to. Even his own master couldn't do that. Just this powerful aura alone was so powerful, what would happen if they fought? So he didn't feel wronged calling him Junior at all. 1 million? Hee. Isn't your life a little too cheap? Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted, do you want money or your life? Damn it. Damn it. Guan Zhongkai was already forcing himself to stand up. The sudden shout almost scared him to the point of kneeling down. He trembled and said, Senior, how much do you want? How much do I want? I'm afraid you can't afford what I want. Yu Qianqiu gently crossed his legs and pointed at the storage bag on his waist. I won't make things difficult for you, lest I say that you're bullying a junior. I've always been a kind person and not a greedy person. I don't want more, just take as much as you have in this storage bag. Chapter 552. The main hall quietened down. Guan Zhongkai stood there dumbfounded and speechless, his face ashen. It wasn't that he didn't have money in his storage bag, there was more than 100 million. That 100 million was the reward for capturing Yu Qianzhou from the Chamber of Commerce. It wasn't his personal money, so how could he give it to him for his own use? The consequence of using it up was that he wouldn't be able to explain himself. He was filled with regret. He regretted not holding back just now. It was just a few irritating words. Why did he have to make a move? Now that he thought about it, it might really have something to do with him acting like a big boss outside. Now that he had finally met a tough opponent. Senior Niu. Guan Zhongkai begged in despair, I do have a lot of spirit stones in my storage bag, but that's the Chamber of Commerce's money. If I give it all to you, it's no different from killing me. It's better, it's better. He didn't say, it's better to kill me now, in the end. He didn't doubt that this Niu Yud was a good person. In the cultivation world, someone who dared to call out his grandmaster, Yin Bai Kong, by name, wouldn't care about the life and death of a tribulation-passing stage cultivator. Moreover, from this person's actions, he wasn't just a normal person. Normal people wouldn't dare to brazenly extort people from other countries. As expected, Yu Qianzhou snorted with a faint smile, don't talk about the Chamber of Commerce in front of me. That's not something I care about. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. After I kill you, the money in your storage bag will still be mine. Who knows, there might be some other valuable things. Yu Qianzhou suddenly stood up. Guan Zhongkai hurriedly begged for mercy, I'll give it, I'll give it. Senior, please don't be angry. I'll give it to you. Without another word, he quickly rummaged through the storage bag for spirit stones. Then, he took out another storage bag and handed it over with both hands. Yu Qianzhou grabbed it and scanned it with his divine sense. After a rough estimate, he estimated that there were about 105 million high-grade spirit stones. He weighed the bag in his hand and said, it's all here? You're not hiding anything, are you? She slowly walked to his side. Guan Zhongkai was shocked and scared witless. He thought that Miao Yi was going to go back on his word after taking the money. He knelt down on the ground and said fearfully, Senior Niu, you are a senior expert, you can't go back on your word. I didn't even leave a single spirit stone. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavens. You can take it for examination. He hurriedly untied the storage pouch on his waist, indicating that he was willing to be examined. Fu Chun, who was standing to the side, shook her head slightly. It turned out that the so-called experts at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage were nothing more than this. They were usually arrogant because they had never met anyone powerful. Actually, in the end, he was no different from an ordinary person. Look at how he was wagging his tail and begging for pity. He was still so unbearable. Yu Qianzhou subconsciously wanted to take his storage bag and take a look. He stretched out his hand, but halfway through, he waved it away and laughed, look at what you're saying. If I didn't trust you, would I let you take the initiative? I'm not that narrow-minded. Get up. The cold and terrifying aura that enveloped Guan Zhongkai's body instantly disappeared. Guan Zhongkai slowly stood up as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He cupped his hands with a miserable expression and said, Junior will take his leave. Wait. Yu Qianzhou turned his head to look at him. Although he was now free from the shackles, he didn't think that he could escape if Niu Yu didn't let him. His whole body trembled and froze on the spot. Don't be nervous. I have something to tell you. Yu Qianzhou smiled as he put away the storage pouch. Guan Zhongkai put on a long face and said, Senior's words are precious. I really don't have any more spirit stones on me. I don't dare to waste any more of your time. The fee for chatting was too high. He really couldn't bear it. Yu Qianzhou was startled. He understood what Guan Zhongkai meant. So it turned out that Guan Zhongkai was afraid that he would extort him again. Slightly embarrassed, he waved his hand and said, "I'm not that greedy. This time, it's free." "Thank you, Senior." Junior is all ears. Guan Zhongkai stood there woodenly with his hands behind his back. Yu Qianzhou smiled and asked, "I heard that your master, Sikongju, has already led people to Gold Casting City?" "Why yes." Guan Zhongkai looked at him in bewilderment. He didn't know what Niu Yud wanted to do. "When you go back, you can tell your master, Sikongju, everything that happened here. If he's unhappy, tell him to come and find me." I don't dare. Guan Zhongkai put on a look of fear and trepidation. It'd be a miracle if he didn't dare. "I'm afraid that in order to escape punishment, he'll push all the blame onto me." Yu Qianzhou glanced at him but didn't expose him. He continued, "Go back and tell your master that I know why he's here. Today, there are so many people who came to find me. They're all here for the same reason as your master." Finally getting to the main topic, Guan Zhongkai woke up and hurriedly said, "Senior Niu, I'm here on master's orders. Please come to Gold Casting City and meet my master." "You're only saying it now? What were you doing before?" Yu Qianzhou rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not going." Guan Zhongkai swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He couldn't afford to offend him. He thought to himself, "You're the one talking nonsense. You didn't even give me a chance to say it." Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and said, "I won't beat around the bush. All the countries want to recruit me, but I'm not related to any of you. Talking about friendship is nonsense. In short, whoever gives me the most money will be able to invite me. As for the World Commerce Association's name, it's still a little small and can't suppress me. Let your master not worry. 10 days later, all the countries will send people to report their base price. I'll go with whoever offers the highest price." "All right. I'm still busy here, so I won't keep you. Send the guest off. Please." Fu Chun raised her hand and gestured for him to leave. Guan Zhongkai bade farewell and quickly left. He didn't want to stay here a minute longer. Yu Qianzhou strolled to the door and watched the two of them leave. Inside the courtyard, Merlin could faintly hear Fu Chun say, "Mr. Guan, after you go out, you must announce the rules inside to everyone. Otherwise, there will be more misunderstandings." He didn't hear Guan Zhongkai's reply. After Guan Zhongkai came out, the people outside the courtyard were surprised to find that the people who came out before them all had black faces, but this guy's face was pale. Even Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the door, couldn't help but take a few more glances. "The next one can pay and go in." Qin Jiaxing raised his hand and pointed at Yulan Do in front of him. Yulan Do grabbed Guan Zhongkai and asked, "Brother Guan, what's wrong?" "But what happened inside?" "What happened?" "He almost lost his life." Guan Zhongkai was scared just thinking about it. His gaze swept across the crowd. There were even some people who had grudges with him. He thought to himself, "Damn it. If they were to be unlucky, then everyone would be unlucky. Why should they tell them the rules inside?" He wasn't wrong to think this way. If there were only a few people who were cheated, then these few people would definitely be unlucky when they returned. But if everyone was cheated, then they could only blame Niu Yud for being too cunning and not everyone else. If a few of them were idiots, then it was understandable. There was no reason to say that everyone was an idiot. In this way, the law wouldn't punish everyone. At least everyone would receive a lighter punishment because it had nothing to do with incompetence or incompetence. He wanted to leave, but he hesitated when he saw Yulan Do. After all, their friendship wasn't shallow. Thus, he grabbed him and said, "Come with me, I have something to tell you." He wanted to tell Yulan Do alone. He didn't want others to benefit from it. Qin Jiaxing glanced at them coldly and didn't rush them. He thought about what his boss had said when he was strolling in the plum forest, "I won't play with schemes today." This time, I'm playing with people's hearts. I'll openly set up a big formation here. Let's see who can break my formation. This formation doesn't take people's lives. It only discerns people's hearts. Anyone who enters the formation will be able to see through the method to break it. However, those who are selfish. Sigh. I hope they won't disappoint me. At that time, when Fu Chun saw his bleak and sighing face, she was puzzled and said, "Boss, if we can really earn money, you should be happy. From your tone, why do you sound so depressed? Earning money is secondary." Sigh. You won't understand even if I explain. Boss shook his head and sighed. I've killed many people, many people. Maybe in the future, more people will die because of me. I just want to know if what I did was wrong. If people's hearts aren't what they used to be, then it doesn't matter. I know what to do in the future. The two of them looked at each other. They didn't know how many people their boss had killed. Was it a few dozen or a few hundred? However, the two of them could hear that their boss was a little guilty. Fu Chun asked curiously, "Then why do you hope that someone can break your big formation? Won't this make you feel uneasy?" Boss glanced at the two of them and smiled faintly. He didn't explain much and slowly walked into the hall. As he walked, he softly muttered, "Riding a sword to traverse the vast heaven and earth, white bones like a mountain, startling birds. Why do you have to do this?" The two of them didn't understand why their boss suddenly became so sentimental. In short, they were confused and didn't know what he meant. However, at that time, Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun didn't really believe that this method could make money. They estimated that at most 1 or 2 unlucky people would be enough. If this method could make a lot of money, then everyone in the world was an idiot. However, the result made the two of them speechless. They really admired their boss from the bottom of their hearts. It was such a simple setup, but everyone rushed to give money to him. They couldn't even be chased away. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that those people who suffered losses didn't have anyone to threaten them. No matter how many times they urged them to reveal the truth, they wouldn't do it. Although they were all angry, they really kept their mouths shut. They couldn't wait for everyone to suffer losses. The two of them looked on coldly from the side, but they were sighing in their hearts. They finally understood why their boss said this was a big formation. Why he said this formation didn't take people's lives but only discerned their hearts. Sure enough, it was all because of selfishness. This person's selfishness really made people speechless. Yulando was holding a storage bag in his hand and was about to hand it over to Qin Jiaxing. After Guan Zhongkai's disturbance, he didn't know whether to leave or stay. He dawdled there, and the others couldn't take it anymore. The people behind him shouted, "Yulando, are you going in or not? If you want to go in, then be straightforward. If you don't want to go in, then leave. Don't block the way." Yulando lightly shook off Guan Zhongkai's hand that was holding him. He pointed behind him unhappily and said, "Brother Guan, you finished your business. You should let me go back as soon as possible." What he meant was that it wasn't easy for so many people to queue up. "If you pull me away now, won't I be at the back of the queue when I return? Aren't you harming me?" Chapter 553. Guan Zhongkai was about to inform Qin Jiaxing through telepathy, but Yulandu's storage bag was already in Qin Jiaxing's hand. Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the door, glanced at the two and sneered in his heart. He counted the spirit stones in the bag. Guan Zhongkai was speechless. He had done his best and Yulandu wouldn't be able to blame him. He sighed and strode to the side. With a whoosh, he soared into the sky and flew towards Gold Casting City. Yulando only turned her head to look at Guan Zhongkai's disappearing figure before she strode into the Plum Garden, by Wan Nation's sacred land, heart-cleansing lake. When Wen Lanfeng's voice rang out, everyone turned pale with fright. Even with everyone's cultivation, they were unable to sense where the sound came from. Even the 6 soul formation realm experts in the sky were no exception. Looking around, the verdant forest was shaking non-stop, and the calm surface of the lake had also lost its tranquility. All the soul formation realm experts present could do the same, but for some reason, everyone felt the atmosphere was strangely oppressive. The 6 people who wanted to fight couldn't. Pei Fong and the other 2 looked at each other and relaxed their tense expressions. Yin Baikong, who had been called out, felt a little awkward. He thought to himself, damn my bad luck. I've been yelling for half a day, but there's no response. Of all times, they just had to target me. Isn't this like slapping my own face? I've never had any conflicts with Wen Lanfeng before. Brother Wen, please don't misunderstand. We didn't mean to cause trouble. Yin Baikong smiled awkwardly and his deep voice spread to the surroundings. He suddenly pointed at Pei Fong and said, it was Fatty Pei and the other 2 who provoked us first. We had no choice but to show some respect. Wen Lanfeng called out his name, but he dragged the others into the conversation. Bing Qingzi and Hu Changshou frowned but didn't say anything. Pei Fong, on the other hand, shook his fat face and scolded, Yin Baikong, we all know what kind of person you are. Don't slander us. Damn Fatty, how dare you say you didn't provoke us first? Yin Baikong angrily pointed at the crowd below and said, there are so many pairs of eyes down there as witnesses, yet you still dare to lie through your teeth. Get someone to testify. Pei Fong roared. He didn't believe that with the cultivation of those people below him, there would be anyone who dared to testify in front of him. It would be more likely if they didn't want to live in the future. The 2 of them were at each other's throats. They were both cursing each other for being shameless. They were not afraid of losing the demeanor of the top 10 experts in front of so many people. Many of the people below were disdainful, but it was none of their business. They were all watching the show. I wonder if the 6 of you would still dare to act like this in Bai Changchun's territory? Wen Lanfeng's voice suddenly sounded in the air. The 6 people facing each other raised their heads and were shocked. None of them had noticed when he had arrived. Clearly, his cultivation was much higher than theirs. In the sky, his grayish-white robe fluttered gently. His figure was tall and slender, and his long, uncrowned hair fluttered in the wind behind his head. He gave off the feeling of blending in with heaven and earth. Wen Lanfeng crossed his arms and stood quietly in the air. His slightly melancholic eyes stared coldly at the 6 people below. Yin Baikong and Pei Fong, who were chattering like shrews, stopped arguing. Mr. Wen. The hundreds of spirit-severing experts below cupped their fists and called out. Wen Lanfeng looked down and nodded slightly. When the 6 people heard Wen Lanfeng's words, they didn't know how to answer. They looked at each other and felt that something was wrong. This aggressive way of speaking was not Wen Lanfeng's usual style. He. Brother Wen. Yin Baikong was the first to cup his fists and said with a smile, we haven't seen each other for 100 years. I didn't expect Brother Wen to still be as elegant as ever. Your cultivation is even better than before. This is truly worthy of celebration. Brother Wen. The other 5 people also cupped their fists and saluted. In the sky above the forest not too far away, Wen Rui revealed a gratified smile when he saw this scene. Who in the world would dare to defy the patriarch except for Bai Changchun? With the patriarch, Baiwan nation's status in the cultivation world would not decline. You even turned a deaf ear to my words. It seems that I, Wen Lanfeng, have been in seclusion for 100 years and have almost been forgotten. No wonder you have to put the Wen family's sacred land in your eyes and want to fight and kill here. Wen Lanfeng's gaze moved across the faces of the 6 people and said in an indifferent tone, you all came to me together. Do you think I'm easy to bully? The 6 of them sensed that something was wrong from Wen Lanfeng's eyes. There was a faint killing intent in them. They all gasped. Could it be that this guy's temperament changed after being in seclusion? The previous Wen Lanfeng had a gentle temperament and would never be like this. Feeling something was wrong, Yin Baikong, who had been talking to them, shut his mouth. It was not a good thing to stand out at this time. Bing Qingzi, on the other hand, frowned and said, Brother Wen, don't misunderstand. I definitely didn't mean that. When we heard that Brother Wen came out of seclusion, we all came to congratulate you. How would we dare to look down on Brother Wen? Bing Qingzi, you don't need to explain. I heard Yin Baikong's words and the facts are right in front of me. If I didn't show up, I'm afraid the Wen family's sacred land would become your battlefield. Wen Lanfeng snorted coldly and said, this kind of congratulatory method is really unheard of. Since you all have the guts to come here and behave atrociously, you must have come prepared. I, Wen, will accompany you all. There's no need to waste time. Come at me together. Wen Lanfeng crossed his arms and slowly descended to the center of the 6 people. The 6 people floated backward and made way for him. At this time, no one dared to get close to him. This guy had a murderous look in his eyes. It was best not to become the first target of his attack. There was an uproar below. No one expected that Wen Lanfeng, who was famous for his mild temperament among the top 10 experts, would actually take the initiative to challenge them. Listening to his words, Wen Lanfeng was prepared to deal with 6 experts at the late soul transformation stage by himself. Many people even guessed that Wen Lanfeng wanted to use the 6 experts to establish his prestige in front of everyone. Otherwise, there was no need. Some people even came to a conclusion. Wen Lanfeng was so confident that the world's #1 expert, Bai Changchun, had already been defeated by him. The disciples of the Wen family, who were originally shuttling back and forth to entertain the guests, all stopped at this time and looked up at the sky excitedly. Although most of them had never seen the elder ancestor, it did not hinder their worship of him. Now that they had personally witnessed the elder ancestor challenge 6 experts at the late soul transformation stage, they were truly overwhelmed with emotions. Everyone knew that Wen Lanfeng had overestimated himself and challenged the world's #1 expert for the sake of a woman. When the disciples of the Wen family went out, they often heard people ridiculing this matter. Although they were angry, because the elder ancestor was in seclusion, Wen Rui had decreed that they were not allowed to easily stir up trouble outside. As a result, most of them swallowed their anger. Now that the elder ancestor had come out of seclusion and publicly challenged the world's 6 experts, they felt like they had been humiliated. Once this news spread, everyone could walk in the cultivation world with their heads held high again. Who would dare to be unconvinced? The Wen family would definitely regain its position as the #1 family in the cultivation world. The 6 people in the sky were shocked to hear this. This Wen Lanfeng was so arrogant that he dared to challenge all 6 of them by himself. His confidence was really inflated. If it was 1 against 3, there might be a chance of victory. But to challenge 6 experts at the late soul transformation stage alone, it seemed that even Bai Changchun had not done it before. The 6 people suddenly thought of the same possibility that everyone else had guessed. Maybe Bai Changchun had really been defeated by him. Bing Qingzi narrowed his eyes slightly and said, Brother Wen, we are indeed here to congratulate you. Isn't it a bit unreasonable for you to treat your guests like this? Wen Lanfeng said indifferently, Bing Qingzi, if someone came to your great snow mountain to make trouble, would you still treat them as guests? Bing Qingzi opened his mouth but was speechless. If someone came to his great snow mountain to fight, he would definitely take action. He wanted to say, this is different, but then again, what's the difference? The 6 people were well aware that it was precisely because Wen Lanfeng was easy to talk to and had a good temper that he would not do anything as long as they did not provoke the Wen family. That was why they had the courage to fight here. Just as Wen Lanfeng said, if they were in Bai Changchun's territory, they would not even quarrel, let alone fight. At the end of the day, some things also depended on the person. It was just a matter of whether they were afraid or not. Bai Changchun was a notorious fiend. If he was unhappy, he would kill someone. In front of him, no one would have the thought of causing trouble. Everyone was obedient and couldn't wait to hide. Who would dare to fight in his territory? After Wen Lanfeng appeared with a tough attitude that they had never shown before, the 6 people were thinking of retreating. Bai Changchun was scary enough, and they did not know if this guy had really defeated Bai Changchun. But if they retreated like this, the news would immediately spread throughout the cultivation world. The so-called 6 late-stage soul transformation experts had joined forces and yet they did not dare to accept Wen Lanfeng's challenge. If this news spread, it would be a joke. They could not afford to lose this face. Brother Wen, I'll first apologize to you. I was hot-headed and did not consider thoroughly. I shouldn't have caused trouble in your Wen family's sacred land. Yin Baikong was really adaptable. He bowed to Wen Lanfeng on the spot. After getting up, he sighed and said, Brother Wen, it really is a misunderstanding. We heard that after you came out of seclusion, you went to Demon Ghost region and defeated Bai Changchun, becoming the #1 expert in the cultivation world. We specially came to congratulate you. We had absolutely no intention of not putting you in our eyes. If you don't believe me, you can ask everyone else. After saying this, Yin Baikong quickly transmitted his voice to the 5 people. Everyone, didn't you all come here to know the result of the battle in Demon Ghost region? I have already endured the humiliation. You should also cooperate. The people below looked at each other and whispered. The world commerce was worthy of being the largest force in the cultivation world. They actually knew that when Lanfeng had already defeated Bai Changchun. After sighing, everyone looked at Wen Lanfeng in awe. The #1 expert in the world. The eyebrows of the other 5 who received Yin Baikong's voice unconsciously twitched as they glanced at Yin Baikong meaningfully. As expected of a famous old fox in the cultivation world. Using the opportunity to test the waters, this plan was very vicious. If Wen Lanfeng had even defeated Bai Changchun, just this news alone would be enough to cause a sensation. The few of them losing face was really insignificant. If Wen Lanfeng had lost to Bai Changchun and heard this, he would definitely not dare to accept the title of #1 expert in the world. Hee. Wen Lanfeng, who could not defeat Bai Changchun, was really nothing to be afraid of. With the 6 of them joining forces, he would probably not be able to escape today. Chapter 554. Although the 6 of them were respectful, the exchange of glances showed that they knew each other. If Wen Lanfeng won against Bai Changchun, it would be fine. But if he lost, it would be the day of Wen Lanfeng's death. A great battle was inevitable, and the Wen family would completely disappear from the cultivation world. The 6 of them maintained their previous state, their gazes silently falling on Wen Lanfeng, quietly waiting for his reply. Although Wen Lanfeng had been trapped by love for many years, he had survived until now in the cultivation world and had such a high cultivation base. Naturally, he was not an ordinary person. He keenly sensed that the atmosphere between them had become a little strange. His melancholy eyes became deep in an instant. His cold gaze swept over them, and finally fell on Yin Baikong's face, who was smiling apologetically. Yin Baikong's expression did not change, besides Bai Changchun, who dares to call himself the world's #1 expert. Wen Lanfeng replied indifferently. His robe fluttered slightly in the wind, but silently stopped moving. No matter how strong the wind was, it would not be able to move the corner of his robe. The wind suddenly rose, and the surrounding branches swayed unsteadily. The group of people below had been in the cultivation world for many years, so they naturally noticed that the atmosphere in the air was a little strange. The 7 people's robes were as heavy as 1,000 caddies, and the wind did not move them. They were like stone statues floating in the air. No one said a word. They exchanged glances in silence and were also prepared to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Yin Baikong asked in surprise, did Brother Wen not fight Bai Changchun? Or did Brother Wen and Bai Changchun fight to a draw? Otherwise, with Bai Changchun's temper, I'm afraid he would not be so easy to talk to. How could he let Brother Wen enter and leave the demon domain at will? Bai Changchun's cultivation base is unfathomable, and he has the ability to shock the world and make the gods weep. There is a world of difference between us. In 3 moves, he broke through my 100 years of cultivation and seriously injured me. Fortunately, Nongzhu arrived in time. Otherwise, would not be able to stand here and speak with confidence today. Wen Lanfeng slowly told the truth, without the slightest intention of covering up his embarrassment. There was no need to cover up. Even if he cultivated in seclusion for another 100 years, he would not be Bai Changchun's opponent. The disparity was too great. His cultivation was like child's play before Bai Changchun, and it was truly not worth mentioning. In fact, he had vaguely guessed what the 6 of them were planning, but he still told them the truth without fear. Because he had made up his mind to fight with the 6 of them today. Wen Lanfeng also had his own pride. He was convinced that he had lost to Bai Changchun, but he also wanted to prove that he deserved to be ranked 2nd in the world. He wanted to defeat the 6 late divine transformation realm experts to tell her that although Wen Lanfeng was no match for Bai Changchun, she was not a good-for-nothing. In addition, when Rui told him about the bitter history of the Wen clan's descendants over the past 100 years because of his defeat. During the 100 years he was in seclusion, the glory of the number 1 clan in the cultivation world had gradually declined. As the pillar of the Wen family, he had the responsibility to restore the family's former glory. At the same time, he needed to fulfill the promise he had made in Obedient Island. If he wanted to support Yu Qianqiu, he would also need to display his strength to intimidate the world. Otherwise, there would always be people who would play tricks on him. For example, the 6 top experts in the cultivation world in front of him. It was precisely because of this that he, who was famous for his good temper in the cultivation world, was no longer docile. He wanted to prove his strength to the entire cultivation world. 3 moves. Everyone gasped. Bai Changchun actually used only 3 moves to defeat Wen Lanfeng? This was too unbelievable. However, no matter how doubtful they were, everyone believed that Wen Lanfeng had no need to belittle himself to elevate Bai Changchun. He, who occasionally appeared in the cultivation world, made people tremble with fear every time he appeared and made the entire cultivation world submit to him. He was dressed in a light green robe and his signature lean face. He was never one to smile. He was cold and indifferent, his eyes were cold and ruthless, and he would kill at the slightest provocation. It was like a shadow shrouding the heads of everyone in the cultivation world. That name was like a monument that people would never be able to surpass. It made people tremble with fear and tremble with fear. Now that they heard the news of Wen Lanfeng being defeated in 3 moves, everyone's mood was indescribable. That person was still worthy of the reputation of the number 1 expert in the cultivation world. He was indeed an insurmountable existence. The 6 people's faces were dark and gloomy. This news filled their mouths with bitterness. Their mouths were full of saliva and they could not swallow it. They were all experts in the late spirit transforming realm, but the gap was so big. After a moment of absent-mindedness, Yin Baikong swallowed his saliva with difficulty and silently transmitted his voice to the 5 people. He was defeated by Bai Changchun in 3 moves, but he dared to challenge all 6 of us at the same time. He is looking down on us too much. Everyone. Now is the time to let go of our prejudices and work together. If we don't show our sincerity, everyone will have to tuck their tails between their legs in the future. Be that as it may, who lit the fire in the first place? Yin Baikong was adaptable, but it was impossible for him to take the lead. Brother Wen. Bing Qingzi was the first to speak after a moment of silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, waiting for him to continue. Unexpectedly, he said, since we are not welcome, we will take our leave. There is no need to make things difficult for everyone. It was not that he did not want to eliminate this troublesome opponent with everyone, but how could Wen Lanfeng be so easy to deal with? Even if they won, there would be 1 or 2 unlucky ones among the 6. As for who it would be, it was hard to say. It was not that he was afraid, but he did not want to take this risk at the moment. The demonic book had finally found a suitable successor, and he needed to support him wholeheartedly. If something happened to him, with the cultivation of his disciples, they would not be able to help Yan Zhuixing gain a foothold in the cultivation world. In fact, among the top experts in the cultivation world, apart from Bai Changchun and Wen Lanfeng, his cultivation was the highest. But he did not want to be number 1 or number 2, it was meaningless to him. So what if he was number 1? It was impossible to remove the curse on him. In order to complete the mission passed down through the generations, he did not want to have any conflict with either Bai Changchun or Wen Lanfeng unless it was absolutely necessary. As soon as these words came out, the other 5 people's expressions changed slightly. They did not expect that the one with the highest cultivation among the 6 would retreat. Unexpectedly, When Lanfeng's words fulfilled the wishes of the 5 people, Bingqingzi, do you think this is a place where you can come and go as you please? It's not difficult to leave, and my request is not too much. Each of you break a finger, and I will let the 6 of you go. There was a sudden uproar. When Lanfeng was really arrogant. If this request was not too much, then what was too much? Hu Chengshou sneered, Brother Bing, you gave in, but they didn't give you face. The other 4 people exchanged a look, and their eyes became firm. Bingqingzi squinted his eyes and said, Wen Lanfeng, why are you so aggressive? Do you really think the 6 of us are afraid of you? Suddenly, a strong momentum burst out from Wen Lanfeng, sweeping out countless almost tangible wind blades, like a storm, madly rushing toward the 6 people. Wen Lanfeng told the 6 people with practical actions that this battle was inevitable. A broad long sword suddenly appeared in front of Wen Lanfeng. He loosened his arms that were crossed in front of his chest, and the world-famous, giant silver, sword fell into his hand. At the same time, the 6 of them quickly dodged, and a wall of light appeared in front of them, blocking the wind blades with tinkling sounds. The group of people below quickly scattered in all directions, afraid of being affected, in the sky above the distant forest, when Rui's heart was in his throat. How could he not be worried when the old ancestor was fighting against 6 experts at the late stage of spirit transformation? Man Hu, Yan Zhuixing, and the others were also rushing in this direction. Suddenly, they found a group of people in the sky in front of them, with their backs facing them. Their intrusion only attracted a glance from these people. A few crossing calamity stage cultivators were not worthy of their attention. In the sky in front of them, the tyrannical airflow emitted by the 7 people was wantonly rolling. The wind whistled, and the strong murderous intent soared into the sky, making it difficult for them to breathe. After seeing the scene of 6 people trapping 1 person, Man Hu was shocked. His master was among them. He couldn't help but salute to the person beside him, Senior Mu, what's going on? The other martial brothers were also shocked. How could this be? Looking at the situation, it seemed that their master was working with the other 5 people to deal with 1 person. Yan Zhuixing was also shocked. In his knowledge, experts at the late stage of spirit transformation were already very powerful. Even experts at the late stage of spirit transformation had to join forces to deal with someone. The distance was too far, and with his cultivation, he couldn't see clearly. So when no one was paying attention to him, his eyes almost narrowed into slits. A faintly discernible red light flickered in his eyes, and he immediately saw the situation clearly. The person being questioned was Mu Sang of the Smokeless Nation. He was here on behalf of Hua Zongming and the others to gather information. When he heard this, he sneered, "What's going on? Your master and the other 5 experts at the late stage of spirit transformation want to join forces to fight Wen Lanfeng. What do you think is going on?" It was unknown whether the ridicule in his words was aimed at the side overestimating themselves. Man Hu and his martial brothers were shocked speechless. Under such circumstances, there was no room for them to intervene. It was impossible for them to help their master, so they could only stare and wait for the result. That person was the 2nd strongest expert in the world, Wen Lanfeng? He was actually fighting against 6 experts at the late stage of spirit transformation by himself? Yan Zhuixing slightly clenched his fists. He felt as if the demonic blood in his body had been stimulated by something. In an instant, it began to boil, and he had a strong desire to participate in the battle. He desperately suppressed it. He didn't know what was going on. Ever since he started cultivating the demonic book, it seemed as if a seed of battle had been planted in his body, and it gradually sprouted and grew. He asked for it. "Don't be polite with him." Pei Fong roared, and a bewitching blue saber appeared in his hand. There was no need to say anything. At this point, the 6 of them naturally didn't need to be polite. Between them and Wen Lanfeng, it was either you die or I live. Spirit treasure level weapons appeared in their hands, and for a moment, a dense murderous aura formed a faint gray fog among the 7 people. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.